Summary: taken in at birth by root, Naruto goes through the ups and downs that follow, not questioning orders. Although his trials are made easier with a bloodline from the mist. If Minato was to describe how he was feeling at the moment, he would tell anyone, stranger or not, who asked that he was ecstatic, happy, and nervous all at the same time, making for one anxious man. The man currently feeling all of these raw emotions was none other than the fourth Hokage Minato Namikaze, his hair yellow, the same shade of yellow as the sun on a sunny day, with it being tied behind his headband, leaving two bangs to hang down, framing his face. A pair of blue eyes to match the sky, and his smile always stretching from ear to ear. Standing at about 5 feet 8 inches tall and always proudly donning his cape that stated he is and always will be the fourth, Minato knew that his and Kushina's child was going to be born in just a short amount of time, to him which felt like an eternity. It seemed to be taking so long because his wife was screaming and cursing him out, making the whole thing more stressful. The currently screaming woman was named Kushina, and she was the love of his life. Kushina was only in her mid-20s with 2 blood-red dots just above her brow line, hidden by her hair, that while her clan's birthmarks, the dots contrasted against her pale skin. The cave they were residing in was giving a depressing aura as it was cold and gloomy. The few ANBU guards he could see outside giving it a serious vibe. Minato could not keep the smile off of his face all the same though, just so happy to have this day finally happening. Having Hiruzen's wife demanding him to get a grip only complemented his wife's wailing and cursing him out for putting her into this position. This shouting only made the already long labor seem to drag out even longer for Minato. Minato was shaken out of his inner monologue of complaining by another person crying, but this was a cry he had wanted to hear ever since he knew Kushina was pregnant and in labor, and thus Naruto was brought into their world. Reaching out to hold his child, who was just cleaned from his messy entrance, he was excited to hold his child for the first time. He was rather surprised when had his hand slapped away from his child instead. Minato was kinda shocked at having his hand slapped away. No, the mother holds him first. Not being able to hold a grudge for that, he just scratched the back of his head and smiled nonetheless. Walking over to Kushina, he saw her and his child sitting cuddled together and thought of what he wouldn't do to take a picture right now. Hearing Naruto starting to cry, Kushina began to coo at him to try and settle him down with little to no avail. Trying to wipe away some of the blood from him, she noticed his wisps of hair. Look, Minakuin, he has my father's hair. Yes, her father, the Kagaya man. Quite terrifying. He was even in his last few years alive. Someone has to keep the tradition of exotic hair colors going then, right? We already have red and yellow. Well, white isn't the most exotic, but it wasn't exactly natural. That train of thought would also point out neither are the 2 dark crimson dots on his forehead, announcing he is a descendant of the Kagaya clan. When Kushina saw him open his eyes for the first time, she couldn't help but stare. They were a rich blue of emotion that was yet to form. 3 lines stood proudly on his face, dawned on each cheek, dark enough to stand out, but not dark enough that they grabbed your attention. Do you have a name for him? Biwako prodded gently. Smiling fondly as she looked at Minato, Kushina announced, yes, we're going to name him Naruto. Minato could practically see his sensei Jiraiya dancing when he heard that they were going to name their child that. Taking Naruto out of Kushina's hands and passing him to Biwako so she could clean him up and he can continue fixing Kushina's seal. After all, the Kyuubi roaming about causing a catastrophe would be terrible for everyone around. Minato was working away at the seal when it felt as if something seemed to shift in the air, but what put this phenomenon to the back of his mind for the time being was the sound of a kunai tearing through someone. The distinct smell of blood in the air, and the sound of a wet gurgle of someone's last moments, followed by a baby crying at the rapid movement, disturbing him from his sleep. Step away from the Jinchuriki, and the child will stay safe, the stranger warned threateningly. You have my word. Holding a kunai at their child ready to go in for the kill at a moment's notice, his strangely marked mask betrayed no emotion, just a singular Sharingan glaring at them. His cloak hiding his body, he took a few deliberate steps back, raising his hands up and looking at Kushina, and both of them sharing the same singular thought at that moment. Minato took one hesitant step away from Kushina and toward the masked man with speed unparalleled. He threw his kunai. Perplexed, he saw it fly right through his mask. Not wasting even a fraction of a second, warped to the kunai still mid-flight and stole Naruto out of the masked man's hands. Hearing a sizzling noise coming from the blanket Naruto was currently wrapped in, he tore it off of Minato. With that scream and a flash, the blanket was separated, and Naruto was now placed in a crib at home, away from what imminent conflict was about to unfold from this attack. Now came the problem of getting Kushina. Not a huge problem since he is the yellow flash. At least he thought, until he felt a deep, evil, and heavy presence of the Kyuubi. He knew Kushina didn't look to use its power and felt dread. Worry and dread worked hand in hand to make him think as the only other reason he could feel that presence is because the man pulled it out of her weekend seal. Now he was worried that this man had been planning this. But who he was and for how long he had been planning, only time would tell. He flashed to the Hiratian seal on Kushina, who was about to be crushed by the Kyuubi. Grabbing Kushina, he flashed right back home to put her beside Naruto. "Please watch Naruto for now, Kushina," he begged, watching her take ragged breaths. "Please, be careful out there, Mina," gasped Kushina. Minato only nodded, promising he would be. "Don't worry, this will only take a second." And with a flash he was gone, transporting to his own head on the Hokage monument. He was surveying the damage and how to react to a rampaging tailed beast. The beast locked onto him where he stood and charged a Baijidama attack and launching it at him. He could see the vast amount of damage it was causing just on its way to him, rending apart houses and vaporizing last-second earth and water barriers being formed. Readying his seals, he flashed it away to a desolate location to not harm anyone. Behind him, he felt the malicious intent before it could take action and swung his kunai only to meet no resistance. Glancing, he saw his kunai phase through this masked menace. "I am your opponent, fourth," he spat, grasping his wrist tightly. "And you have lost already." Swinging with his other free hand, the attacker let go and jumped back. Both of them now separated in the clearing on opposite sides, staring at each other looking for any weakness visible. It was a duel to see who would crack first. The anonymous attacker shook his left arm and a metallic clicking was audible, followed by a thump as a massive chain was now piled and connected from his left to right wrist, laying behind him, pulled but attached nonetheless. Minato was wondering how a chain was going to stop him, but he was still guarded. They charged in uniform pattern at the same time, the masked man running in a straight line with no accessory action, while Minato threw a kunai and dashed forward, the kunai only flashing through his assailant. Minato charged up a Rasengan ready to strike him. They were close enough now he could practically see the man thinking he won based upon the expression and the lone eye he saw. At least the man had thought he had won until they were less than an inch away from touching. Minato teleported to the kunai he had thrown through the masked man's face, slamming the Rasengan into the back of him, the rotating chakra sphere tearing through him, whilst also leaving a Hiratian tag on said back while punishing him with his signature attack. The shrill screech of the chakra orb filling his ears and shredding whatever it touched. Phasing away, the man stood in the same field again, but further away, looked ragged, almost hunched over, wheezing for air, from what Minato could hear. Not one to let the enemy time to heal, he readied a kunai. The Sharingan welder tensing, ready to intercept an attack from the front. Minato teleporting to the masked man's back threw him off because he didn't know any tag had been applied. Stumbling away, he shouted out angrily, "You may have bested me, but the Kyuubi is still loose in your Konoha, and it will destroy you all and everything you stand for." He groaned out the last part as his right arm sludged out of his right sleeve, forming a slop at his feet. With that, he used his power to warp away from Minato. Briefly thinking of chasing him down, he decided the Kyuubi is more important to take care of at the moment. Before it destroyed Konoha, seeing that the Kyuubi was currently being pushed out of Konoha by the Hiruzen's adamantine staff, he knew where to teleport to next. Kushina, who while looking better already was still worse for wear. Grabbing Naruto and Kushina, he warped to a location close to Kyuubi. Cutting his thumb off of his tooth, he prepared his jutsu, Kuchiyos no Jutsu. With that shout, a great toad had appeared, smoking a pipe in between its lips and looking like it was part of a Yakuza gang. "Minato, what's this? Where's Kushina?" The toad had bellowed out. "No time to explain, Gamabunta. I need you to help me restrain the Kyuubi. Can you do that?" He could see the toad grimacing. "I'll try my best, but you owe me a drink after this. Come on, you oversized fur ball, I need a new pair of slippers." With a leap, he had jumped onto the Kyuubi's back with a slam, pushing it down to the ground. "Kushina, can you use your chakra chains?" Seeing her nod, he continued with the plan. "I need you to hold the Kyuubi down while I prepare the sealing jutsu. Bunta will be helping, but I don't know how much longer he'll last. I know which seal you're preparing, Minato, and I'm telling you, you won't be the one doing it." A voice interjected, turning to look at the said voice now belonging to the third Hokage. The third Hokage was an aged shinobi, veteran of all three wars, age showing on his face, but not letting it slow him down. The wrinkles he had were deep into his face, trailing from each eye. His current battle was hiding his gray hair, but not his facial hair. "I will do it instead. You still have a village to lead, Minato, don't you? Plus you don't think I know what happened to Biwako." Kushina let out a groan at that point from sheer exhaustion, and within the same breath, Minato was there helping. Looking downcast, he nodded and set out to do what he could. "Let's get everything set up, shall we?" I'll give you my chakra Kushina since you're running low. With a nod of agreement, she shouted and began to move her chains to restrain the QB. After giving Kushina most of his chakra, he nearly toppled over after feeling how much chakra he had used up, the drained feeling only leaving him able to do a few more jutsu. With Minato's additional chakra, her chains tightened. Groaning against the mass that is the QB, she held tight, knowing that the slightest slip-up could kill them all. Fuinjutsu, Shiki Fujin. With that shout, the air grew cold, and all noise seemed to halt as an unseen force grabbed the body of the third. With Hiruzen toppling over, the seal was formed on Naruto's navel, leaving an 8-pronged spiral mark for all to see. With his last few breaths, the third Hokage made his way to Naruto and had hidden a bit of his chakra into Naruto's seal just in case anyone tried tampering with it. Alright, that's it, Minato, don't call me unless it's for drinking. I mean it. With that last quip, the boss summons of the Toad contract left in a poof of smoke, leaving the 3 shinobi and 1 baby to ponder the last few seconds of the third Hokage. With some of his last few moments of peace, the dying third Hokage sensed danger rushing towards them, shouting out, Minato, Kushina. Be ready, I think someone knows several people are coming at high speed. Within moments of saying that, a group of masked nin had begun assaulting them. Their masks looked like Konoha's ANBU forces with the face masks representing animals, but they looked slightly off, and they also bore no headband or similar identification. With surprise on their side, they managed to take down and restrain Minato and Kushina. Both, while excellent in taijutsu, both were too exhausted to do any real fighting against these levels of shinobi. The real challenge came from the third Hokage, who shot a water bullet killing 2 masked assailants before he was too weak from the sealing process to fight back. Call it in, Jinchuriki secured. With several nods, they took Naruto and left the premises, but not before knocking out Minato and Kushina. When they came to and realized what happened, they became distraught with grief and anger. Both knew that the village had to be put first and foremost, though. The first thing that Minato and Kushina were thinking of was who the shinobi that attacked were, as they had looked like Konoha ANBU, but looked so different in the masks they wore. The next day was for the dead. The third Hokage and all shinobi who died had their service together. It was a depressing event. Even nature was weeping with all of those that had lost and were mourning for the deceased. It was a time when the adults wept as no one felt a strong front would help. Everyone knew that it was useless. The shinobi and civilians together had no choice but to move on, or else the tree that was Konoha would topple. Out of everyone who had lost that day, Minato and Kushina were taking it especially hard, as they had lost friends, family, mentors, and their newborn child not even a day old. Kushina cursed and sobbed while Minato could only hold her tightly and cry with her. Minato had ended up giving a speech on Hiruzen and his wife's burial service. To all shinobi who wanted to be present, not that anyone would hold it against them if they didn't want to be. Today we mark the loss of one of the longest living shinobi to serve Konoha, and one of the strongest shinobi ever. The third Hokage had come into the battle alongside my wife, and I once we had secured the beast. He had offered to seal the beast away, but doing so had cost his life, and for that I am thankful, as we all should be, because if he did not commit this sacrifice, then the beast would still be here. So I tell you all, remember this day and what we lost. But remember what we still have, as Konoha is still standing. Taking his leave from the stand, he let everyone else deliver their speeches, drowning out the noise. For Minato, the day was far from done, as he was still processing the loss he and Kushina had gone through. Once all the speeches and the finishing of the ceremony had passed, Minato had just flashed home. No goodbyes, just left, as he really just needed to go home and see his wife. When he arrived home, he noticed none of the lights were on. Knowing where she would be, he moved into their room. Coming into their bedroom, he just knelt down and hugged his wife. Kushina, who was currently a sobbing mess on their master bedroom floor, was being comforted by her equally distraught husband. Why, what did we do to deserve this, Minato? She sobbed on. I just wanted a family, and that demon took it away too. Minato knew the truth was that someone out there in the world stole him, but he let Kushina blame the 9 tails because he didn't know who else to blame other than himself. For not being fast enough. Panic, this is what Obito had felt before sheer fear had outright seized him. After taking the time to get basic healing for his wounds after fighting his old sensei, sitting down and relaxing a little, he realized there was a Hirshin tag on him. The Sharingan would at least see a little of the 4th Hokage if that was pure speed. Almost falling out of his cot in an attempt to get up, he scrambled to find anyone, preferably Black Zetsu, as he was at least intelligent. Zetsu, Toby, Spiral. He shouted with everything he had. Within the same breath, Black Zetsu had appeared. His appearance was one of the more identifying ones, so you knew who he was. He had a body that was completely split, His right side was pitch black, covering the entirety of it. The only distinct thing about this side was one spot for an eye that was strikingly yellow, almost glowing against the black that was his right side. His left side was almost the complete opposite, white with discernible facial features and an eye sharing the same color as his right side. The only thing shared between them was their body and the mop of short green hair. Yes, Obito? Did you miss me? Who would? Almost snapping his neck, Obito turned so fast. Then he started talking. I went ahead with the plan Madara and I had set out, but it had backfired as the fourth was stronger than I remembered him to be. But I was resting up before proceeding with plan B, but I'm almost certain he tagged me with his Hiraishin and we need it removed now, or he could teleport here at any moment. Even Zetsu saw the problem with this as he almost immediately was searching for it. It's on my back somewhere. That's where he warped to with his last kunai strike. Got it. Maybe next time we should come along and eat. And what would there be for us? We're a plant. Well, anything, it's a village. All right. End of the discussion. We have business to deal with. What happened with the QB? Thinking for a moment, Obito hesitated, but still replied. I didn't get to see much, but from my last few moments I saw it was being pushed out of the village. By what I do not know, just that it was. Deep in the sewers within a hidden base there was an elderly man sitting grinning to himself. His face was covered on the right side of his face and around his forehead with a bandage acting as an eye patch, black hair matching his equally dark visible eye. He bore scars along his neck and arms from the second and one of the two shinobi wars he had served in. People used the cross-marked scar on his chin as an identifier. To him, however, it just reminded him of his youth and a folly with kunai during a spar with Hiruzen. Danzo Shimura was the man in question, and he was almost laughing aloud as he had secured the perfect Jinchuriki as a weapon within his recently set up private forces. He alone had secured the new Kyuubi Jinchuriki before his parents could impart anything onto him, leaving him to Danzo to mold to follow any order he gave. These next few years would be interesting, to say the least. The problem he was having trouble figuring out was the Kyuubi's chakra, as he had no way of training the boy in it. And even if he did, he was uncertain as to if Kushina could feel the chakra if he used it. Concluding that this was a matter for later down the line, he leaned towards more pressing thoughts, namely a new base for Root, as they were new. The space could only hold 50 members at the maximum, and there was much growing to do ahead. This task he would leave as a test for his new forces to see if they were even remotely useful. Hiruzen, as much as you may hate me in the afterlife for this, I only did this to give Konoha the perfect weapon, and I would do it again. The only thing I wish I could have changed is you dying in the sealing process. I'll miss our old times together. He spoke aloud to no one in particular. The next thing on Danzo's agenda was a partner for the Jinchuriki, as he needed a tool loyal to him and only him. But to get to that process, he had to make the Jinchuriki lose all attachment to anything else but his master. Walking down to the main training room, he heard the training noises before he could see them. Looking at the Root shinobi training, he watched proudly as they sparred, though he would not show it. Eyeing them for any signs of weakness, seeing none, he called two of them over. I will be having a special member joining us soon, and he will need a training partner. Can I leave this task up to you two to be done? Seeing a set of nods, he turned and left, knowing that if they did not do it well enough, they would punish themselves. After all, there should be orphans aplenty after this attack. To not be able to get a few would be utter incompetence on their part. It also seemed that Root would be quite a bit more busy after this attack to make up for the loss of shinobi. Maybe having Orochimaru do some experiments with Mokutan again. Maybe they'll get lucky again. Root will also be growing, he mused to himself. This attack had made a lot of orphans after all, and they are perfect for Root shinobi, and the more the Root shinobi, the stronger Konoha could grow. Smirking, he nodded victoriously to himself. Yes, it seemed as if all things were turning up Danzo. It had been 8 years since the Kyuubi attack, and life had been climbing only up since then. There were a few problems, of course, the biggest shock being the Uchiha rebellion that was plotted but fortunately stopped. The whole mess had been building up since the Kyuubi attack occurred, and the rumors going around had gotten to the clan. The usually withdrawn clan had all but isolated themselves in their compound, worried about its members. Itachi, Fugaku's eldest, had reported what was happening to the Hokage, and they had worked together to fix the issues before everything spiraled out of control. An issue the Uchiha were complaining about was that they couldn't find Shursui. All of them had originally chalked it up to him being his usual self, but not even he would stay away this long. All they could find for clues was his missing ANBU gear. No notes or anything. Itachi also was clueless to where he could have gone, even though they were very close friends. His ANBU commander said he had checked back from his mission, but that was the last he had seen of him. The second problem that had all but ran out of Konoha before anyone could do anything about was Orochimaru. There had been word of people going missing and experiments being found, so many reports had been pointing to the snake Sannin as the perpetrator. When the assault squad with Jiraiya as the leader was assembled, word had reached Minato that the snake had caught wind of what was happening and fled just as the news had come. With the wind, the minor issue that had popped up that almost caused another war was Kumo. They had sent a political envoy for more trade talks. This envoy they had sent turned out to be a ruse, as they tried to snatch away the Hyuga heiress, and Kumo was mad at the Hyuga for killing him. When they had demanded that the envoy's killer be handed to them, Minato had refused outright and said they could try to get him. The Raikage had come to Konoha in order to apologize for his counsel for sending out orders without his permission, even saying that he liked the response. Of course, after that, the man had said he was still too thin and should up his protein. After hearing a no, he had gone back to Kumo saying how all you need is a bit more muscle. Kushina and Minato had made some news in the time that had passed, as Kushina had given birth to 2 children. While some would say they were overprotective parents, those who knew the cause said it was justified. Yashima was the name they had decided for their beautiful daughter, who had all the coming signs of an Uzumaki, vibrant red hair and skin that seemed to be on the almost snowy side, with a beautiful set of purple eyes to match her mother. With everything that his daughter came to be, Minato was a lot, jealous that Kushina got a near-carbon copy. Minato got his silent wish granted when their second child, Minma, was born bearing a high resemblance to himself. The only thing separating him from Minato was the same that separated Kushina and Yashima, whiskers, 3 faint but still noticeable lines running horizontally on each cheek. Currently in the Hokage's office, Minato and Jiraiya were discussing the recent whispers that were being heard about a new hidden village being established in the land of rice paddies. I'm telling you, Minato, villages don't just pop up out of nowhere. There's usually some political stirring then some whining. So I'm saying we should keep an eye on it. Minato just frowned and looked down and thought, while I agree with you, Sensei, I do not think that anything big will come of this. How about this, Sensei? If you hear anything else noteworthy come up of concern by any means, I want you to look into it. Just know I can't dedicate any shinobi to this. We are just regaining what strength we lost from. You know what? Jiraiya only nodded in resignation. You want me to keep looking for him, don't you? Looking up at his sensei and his quasi-father, he nodded with almost hollow eyes. For all the powerful leader he was, he still faulted himself for Naruto's kidnapping. Minato, come on, Kushina and I always remind you that it was not your fault, okay? There was nothing you or anyone else could have done. Looking down, all Minato could do to try and contain his anger was strain his fists, feeling the raw anger and hatred bubbling up as he stood up. Jiraiya raised his eyebrows and watched as Minato pounded both of his fists into his desk, making his paperwork fly to his feet and around him, coming so close to breaking the table but not quite. Then whose fault is it? Jiraiya grabbed him by the shoulders with both hands, shook him enough to get his attention, but none too gently, looking him in the eyes and calmly saying, "Not yours, Minato. Hell, you could blame me for being out of the village at the time, or for crying out loud the guy who summoned the Kyuubi out of Kushina." Shaking his head violently, Minato argued, "I wasn't fast enough, Sensei, and that's that. Not one to let things like this keep going." He started walking to the door. "You did all you could, Minato, right?" Seeing a reluctant nod, he continued, "There's nothing more you could have done. Just look forward to what you have with Yasi-chan and little Minma. I'll try to find Naruto in the meantime, but I won't promise anything." With that statement, he had left, and the moment the door had closed, he slid down his chair, relaxing his posture. Root headquarters was usually a quiet place, only interrupted by the sparring sessions that were held occasionally. Today, however, was special for a certain set of shinobi as they were being assigned a mission, and everyone in Root always looked forward to serving the leaf. Inside the barracks were 2 particular members studying away at some scrolls. "Sai, we have orders coming from Danzo-sama today." The pale partner turned to look over. "Do you know when Danzo-sama will be here?" The child asking the question was a young boy of just about 8 years old with black straight hair and eyes almost whole in color, dark and showing little emotion. "Negative. I was only told today we will be getting orders," he chirped. This slightly more expressive member of the partnership was Naruto Uzumaki, or as he was only known as en route, Inari. Inari had straight white hair with 2 bangs hanging on either side of his face, framing his 2 ocean blue eyes, still glimmering with a tiny amount of excitement at the prospect of a mission. The birth markings he had announced his ancestry still standing proud, a crimson against his skin. Whiskers dark enough to get you to look at them, but not enough that you could only focus on them, leaving him with a rather intricate face. Both Sai and Inari stood at around average height for their age and wore the mandatory root equipment, gray armored plate strapped on their chest and wrist with black pants. Both of them had the standard tipless tantos all root members had, making them fit in. The doors to their barracks were open just after Inari had finished his sentence, revealing Danzo. Immediately, they had both put their scrolls down and moved in front of Danzo and kneeled. Inari, "Sai, meet me in the debriefing room in 5 minutes." Taking the time to clean up their living space before they left, they made it a little bit early, so they had to wait outside the room. Seeing the doors open and 2 other root members walk out, they waited for the signal to go inside. After a few seconds had passed, they could hear his voice call them in. "You summoned us, Danzo-sama?" Inari queried the moment everyone had settled into the Spartan room they used for these types of things. "Yes, I'll be taking some time away from Konoha, and I need you two to act as bodyguards for me. Fu and Torian are away on a vital mission, and I would like you two to escort me, as I want you to become accustomed to the man who I work with. Any questions?" Turning to his left, he pointed at 2 duffel bags on the floor. "These will also be coming along with us. I expect you to guard them just as well as you would me. Understood?" Seeing the nods, he turned to face them, putting a right hand on Inari's gloss of white hair and size contrasting but still neat hair. "Yes, Danzo-sama." They chorused in unison, Inari raising his head a little so he could look up at Danzo. "May we know who this ally of ours is so we may prepare?" Danzo turned to look at Inari, hiking up his eyebrow a little at the question. "No, I have known this individual a long time. Let's say we both profit from our agreement, not questioning it." The root shinobi nodded. "But we will be meeting a Kage, so I want you two to cause no problems. We also will be needing disguises as other than Sai. Our group would be readily recognizable. I will be going by an alternative name that will be decided upon the road." Turning to behind the desk, Danzo grabbed 2 cases, passing them to the pair, and he let them open the cases to see their disguises. "Inari, your disguise will be that you're my son, and we're traveling around from the land of waterfalls to the land of hot springs. Sai, you will be my nephew who is visiting from Kazekage. I myself will be a minor traveling merchant. If we come across any civilians, I'll cast some genjutsu or make an excuse to drive them off. If a shinobi won't leave us alone, I'll do the talking, understand?" "Yes, Danzo-sama." "Dismissed. Be back in half an hour." Nodding, they agreed in synchronization. Before they grabbed the 2 duffel bags full of the unidentified valuables that Danzo-sama had told them to guard. "Inari, stay behind for a second." Inari had frozen still at those words, his mind going a mile a minute. Did he forget to do something? Did he not hold the kneeling position correctly again? Was he not supposed to ask about this mission? Was he to go for his seal checkup again? He hated those. The seal always burn after. He hoped it wasn't that. "Danzo-sama, did I do something incorrectly? If so, I will accept any punishment you deem necessary." For a fraction of a second, Inari could have sworn, but Danzo-sama said not to do that Danzo seemed to have a little drop in the outer corner of his brow, usually an indicator of sadness or a similar emotion. But Danzo-sama said emotion made us weak. "No, Inari, I want to commend you." Seeing the confused look in his eyes, he continued. "You tried to prepare for the situation ahead of being in it. That's the type of thinking I want all of Root to have, so we can all serve Konoha better." Seeing the contemplating look in Inari's eyes, all he did was reach out and put his hand on Inari's head and left him with 5 words. "Keep up the good work." With that, Danzo left the room, leaving Inari to his thoughts. After standing there deep in thought, he was shaken out of his mind by someone grabbing his shoulder. Turning to look, he saw it was Kazekage. Was of the shorter side for his age of 20-ish. He wore a blank mask when in the field, but without his mask he was fairly nondescript. Gray hair and a strong round jawline with thick eyebrows that crowned his wide-open silver eyes, giving a serious look to his face. "Inari, why are you standing here?" Surprised at being caught idling, and more surprised that he had no reason, he left while telling Kan, "I was just leaving, nothing more." Grabbing the luggage given to him, he left for his and Sai's barracks. Taking his time and walking back, he considered the mission at hand. Arriving at the barracks, he saw Sai already had his disguise ready. He thought he should do the same. Opening his disguise bag, he saw the essentials for himself: hair dye, makeup to cover his whiskers and clan markings, and a new set of clothes. Looking over at Sai, he saw he now had brown hair, almost a dirty blonde color, and was wearing what some merchants would call lower-class clothing. To them, it was just another uniform. As it was almost time to leave, Inari looked at his materials more closely. He saw that he had near a yellow color of blonde for his dye and a middle-class yukata with a deep auburn coloring on it. Shrugging at the uniform choice and lack of storage, he put it on while making sure it was worn correctly. Seeing that Sai was done putting on his clothing, he sat down on his cot. "Sai, Do you want to get your dye put on first or mine? I'll go second. You need time to dry so we can apply your facial disguise. Nodding at the logic, he moved to the bathroom to the sink, bowing his head over it so there would be little mess. Having Sai apply his product to his hair, he wondered how this was going to come out. Getting a tap on his shoulder, he moved his body back and swapped places with Sai, mirroring the process that occurred prior. Reading the box while sitting for a second, Sai turned to Inari and showed him the description. Keep in mind we have to avoid alcohol as that will take out the stain. Is that what it is this time? Last time we chose a water-based dye, and that's all I could smell. Smiling, Sai stood up and grabbed the face makeup. That's probably why Danzo-sama switched it. Got tired of your complaining. Naruto, getting up after seeing what Sai wanted to do, moved to his bedding and gave him a look. I did not complain that much. You complained more about how it was getting in your eye, with your short hair. Both boys shared a smile after that, knowing that they can't smile around anyone else, but they only wanted to smile around each other. The only reason being they are brothers and enjoy what they have. Let us go. It wouldn't be good for us to be late for a mission with Danzo-sama, just because your face paint took so long. Grabbing the bags Danzo had told them to bring in guard, they made sure to turn off their lights and close the door. Organization and routine were what made Roots so stable, and a guiding hand from Danzo. Meeting Danzo in the mission prep room, they saw he was ready with new robes of a brown color, giving him a plain-looking outfit overall. His eye patch was swapped out for a common black eye patch. The scar that so many people knew Danzo for was covered by face paint, and his hair was of a light graying color. You two have everything ready? We might be a few weeks. I'd like to keep it as short as possible, but one cannot predict the future. Watching the two check everything over and see nothing missing, they set off, out of one of many hidden tunnels from the base. Sprinting as fast as they all could while staying together, only stopping once they reached a road that was commonly used for traveling merchants. So where are we traveling to, Danzo-sama? Danzo turned to look at Inari with one raised eyebrow, wondering if he should tell him yet. Deciding it would be best if they knew he stopped, and watching them stop, he started talking. We'll be meeting an old acquaintance of mine, Orochimaru the Snake Sannin. He and I have been partners for a long time. He was the one who gave Kino the Mokuton. Clenching his jaw at the particular memory of losing every day against him, he could only hold that in. Danzo just shook his head at the fact that it was a rivalry between the two, and he was getting worked up over it. Inari, I know I have always been more lenient when it came to emotions with you due to your status, but you must not let feelings get in the way of being a shinobi. Sai, I ask that you continue to help him with this, and your book. What would you do if I asked you to destroy it? Inari could only look down in failure at this, his whiskers hidden by his blush of embarrassment. Sai looked at Danzo confusedly, as to him the answer was obvious. I would do as asked, Danzo-sama, as I would and always will. Humming for a second, Danzo started walking without saying a word. Seeing no reason not to, Sai and Inari started walking as well. Sai switching which shoulder his bag that Danzo told him to guard rested on. So if I ordered you to kill yourself right now, you would? Being rather shocked at the question, Sai hesitated too long for Danzo. Yes, I would only ask where you want me to. Then right here, right now. Inari was rather confused. Everything had been going well so far, only being reprimanded by Danzo-sama for showing anger openly. The confusion he felt stemmed from the fact Danzo-sama was doing this needlessly, as a root shinobi was always ready to die for Danzo in any way he wanted, not unnecessarily like this. The most confusing factor was the twisting knot he felt inside. His heart felt like it was wringing itself out, his two most prized people doing this. Stopping and turning to look at his two pupils, he started his speech. You see? This is why emotion is a weakness. What if Inari was mind-swapped with a Yamanaka and they were going to assassinate me? Would you kill him then? Or after he already had his blade in my neck? I would stop him before that, Danzo-sama. This is good to know. Now let us carry on before it gets dark out. Trudging along after being reprimanded, the pair of rookies hurried after their master. Arriving just at an inn just as it was nearly dark out, they stopped outside before stepping in. Stopping his two subordinates, Danzo spoke. We'll be renting a room, but that's just a cover story. Thankfully, no shinobi stopped us on our way. You two will be getting changed into standard gear, and I will be as well. Then we'll be sprinting the rest of the way, so we will be there by sunrise. Understood? Yes, Danzo-sama. Hearing the synchronous reply, he went into the inn. Danzo was doing his best to act calm for the attendant. From what he could tell, they were having a rough time getting a room for the three of them. I want you two to leave the talking to me. You two lack the certain flow that comes with socializing. Danzo thought about the problems that could arise from this issue. Humming to himself, he decided that nothing too terrible could come from this slight. Elsewhere, all around the elemental nations, several people had sneezed at the same time, all thinking the same thing. Someone was talking about them. Hatsu was having a rough week so far, and it was only Wednesday. On Monday, he found out his wife was sick with a rough cold. Tuesday, the debt collectors came by and said next Thursday they'd break his legs if he couldn't pay by then. Today itself was turning out to be downhill too, because when he woke up this morning, the first thing that happened to him was falling down the stairs. Hatsu was feeling pretty good then when an elderly man and 2 children walked in. A pretty odd-looking old man, but the other 2 children seemed off somehow. Having been a businessman this long and knowing that opportunity always comes, he jumped at the opportunity. "Hello there and welcome to my inn. I have a few rooms open, and if you like, we also have an onsen." Smiling with the delivery of his sales pitch, he looked at the children this elderly man had with him. Obviously, they were his family, judging by how they were looking at the older gentleman in almost reverence. Do you have a room for 3? My son and nephew also want to visit the onsen while we're here, and I think these old bones could use it. Haha dash dot. Smiling at the friendly tone, they worked out a payment, but Hatsu was shocked when he saw the amount of ryo he was given. "I am sorry, sir. It seems you've given me a little too much. Here, I'll give you some change back." Reaching into his pocket, he seized up the 2 children were locking eyes at his own, the glares making him move at a snail's pace. "No, it's fine. I was just giving you a tip for the friendly service. You are okay with this, right?" The only thing he could do at this moment was nod to the nice old man. The second he nodded and had his hand out of his pocket, the children went back to acting like normal kids, and he could move again. "Here's your key. Please enjoy your stay." Having the key taken out of his hand, he watched as the 3 left, hoping that their stay wouldn't be any more stressful than this. Oh well, at least he had enough to fix the problems he was having with medicine for his wife and most of the debt he had. Nodding, all it took were 2 strange kids and a seemingly nice old man. Reaching their room from the main entrance, they stuck their key in the lock and took their first step in. The room was small, but not terribly small, or they'd be cramped together. "I know I said that we'd be taking off right away, but I'd like to take some time for relaxation, even I'm getting tired at my age." Both root trainees were surprised. They always thought Danzo-sama was the perfect shinobi. Sai was the first one to speak up, Inari almost beating him. "If this is what you wish for, Danzo-sama, but I do not think you are any less the perfect example of a shinobi." Almost looking at Sai with annoyance in his eyes, he nodded in the background. The bathhouse wasn't anything spectacular, but it was cozy. The hardest part was telling them that there's 2 different sides to most onsen. In Root, they had mixed showers to make both genders not care about the opposite sex and save money. Not getting it, but not wanting to question Danzo, they followed. Sai and Inari went into this strange place, questioning everything and looking for entry and exit points. Keeping a kunai with themselves just in case of any attackers, at a remote inn, on a long way from any village. "I've come up with a change in plans. Me being away from Konoha could lead to some suspicions, so I will be leaving as soon as possible. You 2 will stay and train with Orochimaru, as Inari can go all-out training with the QB. So I can learn more seals from Orochimaru as well. If that is what you wish for, Danzo-sama. Sai and I will represent Root to the best. I expected no less, but I'm glad you'll try anyway." Inari, from what Orochimaru and I were sending messages, it seems as if he has picked up a member of the Kagaya clan. This member may be able to tell you some info on your clan's Kekai Genkai. You would become a very useful weapon if you had it. Humming in response, Inari thought, how much of a difference would it make? "All right, I think it's best if we take off now. Orochimaru would be at his best if we were on time." Getting out of the onsen, they passed by the cleaner, who offered the 2 children a candy, thinking that children would take candy. After looking at it suspiciously, Sai grabbed the one already unwrapped by the lady and gave it a taste. Giving a nod of safety to eat, Inari took one as well. What would go down in history as the strangest sight for that housekeeper was what Inari thought would be the normal way of eating a plastic-wrapped candy. Taking the whole candy, Inari shoved it in his mouth and started crunching it down and swallowed it. Sai gave Inari a thumbs up at what he thought was good acting like a child. Danzo only face-bombed at the scene. Noting the stillness of the cleaner and the look of horror, he cast a genjutsu to make her think this was some weird daydream. A loud hacking and coughing came shortly after, and Inari spat out a plastic wrapper. Seeing the confused look pointed at him, Danzo could only point at the nearest garbage can. "Right, these 2 are the ones taking over after I die." "Great, all right, we're looking for an Odo shinobi. This is the village that Orochimaru has founded. Their symbol is a musical note, but they'd be a fool to wear it to meet us. Keep an eye out." Taking a walk down an alleyway, a group of 5 older, shady-looking characters came out, all of them carrying some sort of weapon, be it a knife or a bat. The most courageous one, the leader if you would call him that, stepped forward, his ugly mug mostly hidden by the dark shadows of the buildings on each side. "Hey, old man," ignoring the growl. "I see you're wearing some fancy clothes. Seems you got lost down our street. Now you have to pay the fine. You dig? How about the bags you got the brats carrying? That'll be enough. And we'll let you go." Danzo could only sigh. Was it the cane that made people think he couldn't handle himself? Honestly, he thought it gave him more presence. This situation is rather annoying. It seems that there's nothing good to distract them with to cast a genjutsu. "I don't think I'll be doing that. My family and I will walk out of here, and you can return to this feeble attempt at robbery." Trying his best not to cause a ruckus, he tried it the Hiruzen way, with politics and reaching into people's hearts or whatever he always said. "I don't think you heard me, old man." Hearing a growl, he turned to the source, a child of average height. "You got a problem, little man? What's wrong? Daddy didn't get you anything, and now you want to go home." Sai could only huff and take a step back, grabbing Inari's pack that Danzo gave him. Inari turned to look at Danzo, giving him what most root shinobi would call puppy eyes. To anyone else, it was essentially a stare-off. "Are you sure we cannot leave without any payment? It would make this a lot faster. Maybe what you're not getting is what we'll do. Hey, Jasuk, pass me your beer." Taking the beer from his friend, he took a swig of it, before violently slamming it down on Inari's head. Looking up at Danzo, he cackled. "You see, old man? We don't hesitate. Ahaha. Now give me your shit before that's the nicest thing I'll do to ya." Danzo looked at Inari, saw that the hair dye was a little messed up by the tiny amount of alcohol in it. He looked into Inari's eyes, saw the bloodlust, looked at Sai, and both of them just took a couple of steps back. "You have 45 seconds to finish, Inari. You have to clean up after too." Like the gods themselves had released chains on the devil, Inari smiled. He could get rid of some of that bloodlust from when they called Danzo-sama an old man. That was all the warning the thugs got before shit hit the fan. Like a devil possessed, Inari went after the leader of the group, smiling sinisterly. Sending a kick to the inside of his right leg and breaking it out, the man toppled, and that's all it took for Inari to stomp on his throat. One down, Inari thought, 40 more seconds. Jumping at Jasuk, he saw the whites of the man's eyes before he dashed under his left arm, dashing the swipe from said arm, climbed his back and wrapped his arms around his neck. Twisting like the lid on a jar, he hopped. 2 down, 38 seconds left. The lost element of surprise would make the next 3 take more time, but also made things more fun in Inari's opinion, although Danzo-sama preferred quiet operations. Leaping at the man who had a knife, it seemed to be an everyday butcher knife. He knocked it out of his right hand. Grasping the now free hand, he twisted, making the man fall to a knee, palm striking him in the center of the nose, pushing the entire bone up into his brain. He was dead before he hit the floor. 3 down, 22 seconds left. Seeing the other 2 thugs frozen in fear, he sprinted at them, dashing to the right one last second. Toppling the rather small man over, Inari kept punching his hands away. The thug was wondering why he wasn't dead yet from this demonic child. He felt true relief when his remaining partner in crime wrenched the child off of him. Well, that's what it seemed to be at first, until he clambered all the way up the arm that grabbed him. Reaching the face of the man that rudely pulled him off, according to plan, he grasped his head and aimed his thumbs, leading to a gory demise. For down, 10 seconds left. The last guy was crawling away crying. But this info mattered not to Inari, as he was deep in the bloodlust that came from every battle. This was the downside of being a part of the Kagaya clan. He had yet to see an upside, he would later think. Right. The man crawling away, Inari was short on time, so he thought to go with the simple. Grabbing a bat quickly, 8 seconds, he ran back, 7 seconds. He swung and hit. The thunk of the bat against bone ricocheted to his ears, 6 seconds. Hearing a moan, he swung, but now he knew it was over. For seconds, too bad there had to be no blood. It would have been a lot faster. What drips hinted at Inari coming, and the smell of alcohol on him. For seconds, Inari, not bad for no blood. Sai, would you help your comrade with sealing the bodies? Seeing Sai move to the alley, but Inari moved in front of him, he got a little confused. Until Inari bent his head down a little, his face moving to make a smirk, but quickly stopping at Danzo gave a quick look around. Seeing nobody watching, he ruffled Inari's hair, almost stopping as soon as he started. Coughing, he looked away. We better get those bodies sealed up right away. I'll go look for our agent we're meeting. With this, the two walked separate ways, both a tiny bit happier. Inari for satiating his bloodlust and getting his hair ruffled by Danzo-sama, and Danzo for his agent being loyal to a fault. In the alleyway, Sai was huddled over there, 2 bodies already sealed. Working on the third, Inari hopped in after wiping some of the alcohol off his whiskers. You need to learn to control your bloodlust. Danzo-sama sees it as a weakness. He doesn't know how to get rid of it yet, though. We can't help that some goons didn't treat Danzo-sama with respect. I only gave them the last lesson they'll ever need. Sai could only shake his head at this. His brother was so hard to reason with sometimes. Sai, Inari, I found our guide, so you have 5 minutes. Rushing with the last 2 bodies, they walked out of the alley. Inari, we're something to cover your head for now. Your natural hair color is showing. This is our guide, Girin. Orochimaru said she is one of his most capable shinobi. Looking at the mentioned Nin, she was of average height for her apparent age. Her unique style of hair color and style makes her stand out a little, with 2 short bangs framing her face and a spiky ponytail. 2 dark eyes seemingly judging everyone and thing. Orochimaru-sama told me you'd be bringing 2 guards. I'm assuming these 2 here are them? Seeing a nod, she continued. All right, I'll lead the way to Odo. Just make sure you're ready. It's quite the walk. Odogake here was a weird village, Inari thought to himself, but it was practical and underground, which reminded him of home, the quiet and peaceful root headquarters. The cool smooth stone walls and artificial lights were on a daylight cycle from what he could tell, and there were clocks, lots of clocks to keep track of time. Finally stopping after marching behind their guide, Girin, they arrived at a set of double doors. Sai and Inari moved to each door independently, giving a push to open the doors. They saw the Odokage. Orochimaru was sitting in his chair, long straight black hair almost making his white skin and yellow eyes glow. Danzo, how nice to see you. Have you finally decided to come visit me again? Spoke a voice that felt almost like a snake slithering into your ear. Orochimaru of the Sannin, also known as the Snake Sage, was famous for his mastery of many complex techniques and prowess in the scientific arts. That reputation was sullied, however, by the body-snatching and rampant human experimentation. You know how hard it is to get out of Konoha. I can only stay for the minimum amount of time, Orochimaru. You could see the calculations pass behind Orochimaru's eyes, but ignoring the issue, he proceeded. You bring guests and don't even introduce me? I'm a little offended, I must say. Why don't you introduce me to your 2 little helpers? Then we'll move to the lab. Looking like the snake that caught the mouse, he put his elbows up on the table and folded his hands together. Resting his chin on the linked hands, he waited for Danzo to speak. These are my guards and root shinobi in training. This one will also be getting some work done on him. Patting Inari on the head to indicate, humming an acknowledgement, Orochimaru stood up from his desk and walked towards the trio of root shinobi, stopping in front of the 2 smaller, yet still lethal ones. My, what do we have here? Taking a hand and wiping at Inari's face, ignoring the flinch upon contact. Oh, is this the Kagaya clansman you were telling me about, Danzo? And what about this one? He should have something remarkable about him to get your attention. No. Sighing at the rapid-fire questions, he responded before more could pile up. Yes, this is Inari. He is from the Kagaya clan. No, we do not know if he has their Kekai Genkai. That is Sai, his partner and excellent Fuinjutsu user. He has the ability to articulate his ink, and no, it isn't a Kekai Genkai. I myself will be having you implement these into my body. Grabbing the bag on the ground, he threw it on the table and opened it. Inside was a container of a greenish fluid. Floating in it was the body of a dark-haired male in a fetal position, clearly dead. This is Shursui Uchiha. He tried to infiltrate our base, but as you can see, that didn't turn out so well for him. I'd like you to implant his Sharingan to replace the Byakugan I have covered. Sadly, he destroyed the other eye. Anything that you have to make using Shursui's Sharingan such a hassle would be helpful as well. My hasn't someone been busy, Kakuko? I see no issues with this, but I must ask, if that's what's in one bag, what's in the other then? Because in one bag you have the recent Uchiha prodigy, and in front of me you bring a possible fix to the illness one of my best servants have. Grabbing the bag that Inari was holding, he flopped this one onto the table. This came from some white man-like creature that all our censors kept saying they would see occasionally. We could only get the top half as the other half was lost in the wall, we'll say. Orochimaru could only raise an eyebrow at the last part, but who was he to question the results? He might as well leave out the fact that that's where he got the cells to make Mokutan. After all, that's only one group who can hand those out. Have you tested it for anything? Any qualities that deem you bringing it to me? You know I don't like my time wasted, Danzo. Sighing at the long exchange, he continued explaining himself. Yes, we have tested it, and we found it has high regenerative capabilities when attached to someone. And you can thank missing mean volunteers for the experiments. And you want to replace your arm, your right arm with his? And have Shursui's Sharingan replace your Byakugan? Then let's get moving. We don't have all the time in the world. Standing from his chair, Orochimaru started leading the way through the endless corridors and maze-like turns. My last request is that you try to see if Inari has the Shikatsumiyaku and remove his whiskers from his face. They make him recognizable. Orochimaru only nodded at this last request. Clapping his hands together, a few masked assistants came by, lifting the white plant man thing's top half onto a trolley, and beside it hoisted Shirsue's corpse with the still fresh signs of DANZO'S Wenjutsu. Inari and Sai only stood on the sidelines watching this whole debacle. Seeing Danzo turn to them, and he gave their orders. Sai, Inari, you two will listen and treat Orochimaru as you would me, but if any order conflicts with protecting me or Konoha, disregard it. Am I understood? Seeing the pair of nods, he turned to leave into the operating room. Being guided away from your lifelong fighting partner might be a little distracting to some in life, but those en route are trained to work as multi, duo, or solo units. The awkwardness that Inari was feeling from this situation was the fact that there was another person on a table beside him, completely covered in tubes and seals. The occasional groan was let out from the body beside him, reminding him that the body was indeed alive. The door's opening warned him of someone coming in, before they could see him. "Ah, I suppose we haven't met fully yet. I'm Kabuto. I'm an apprentice under Orochimaru-sama, although I bet you already knew that." "I didn't know that. Your comrade Girin had given us a quick rundown on who to and not talk to," recited Inari. "Well, it's not my business who Girin does and doesn't talk to, but she should watch what she says. Anyways, that's enough of the formalities. You see that body beside you? Congrats, you just met another one of the last members of the Kagaya clan. It's like a family reunion." The enthusiasm that rolled off of the last part was readily apparent to Kabuto and anyone else within earshot. To Inari, he just thought that Kabuto was happy for him. "Thank you. Family doesn't mean much unless they're Danzo-sama, but the thought counts." If Inari had to be honest, it felt like he was just beside a corpse. Inari could smell things better than most of his root brothers and sisters, but he doubted anyone else would struggle to smell all the drugs and chemicals pumping, just to keep his fellow clansmen alive. Only thing that told him otherwise, again, were the moans of pain. "What we're going to be doing, Inari-kun, is seeing if you have Shikatsumiyaku hiding somewhere inside you. I have a few questions before we start. Firstly, have you ever broken a bone?" Seeing a shake of the head, he continued on. "Have you ever had any weird bone growths? And lastly, any pain in your bones?" None of those seem applicable to me. Does he know how he activated it? The look of annoyance that crossed Kabuto's face, while unexpected, wasn't surprising. "Well, I suppose it is time I woke him up. Just don't expect a lot. He can't really do much right now." The amount of switches, buttons, and nozzles that had to be flicked and turned off to wake his clansmen up was mind-boggling. Wouldn't the cost outweigh the profit of keeping this person alive? Slowly being raised up by the table folding, Inari was privy to seeing his, although distant, family. The seals uncovered a young teen's face, pale as the snow, and with hair to match. The same pair of dark red dots mirroring Inari. The most standout features were his eyes. His eyes were a darker shade of green, with the bags under his eye red. Seeing him slowly wake up was the annoying part because Inari hated waiting. But it was to be expected after waking someone up from a drug-induced slumber. "Kabuto-san, did Orochimaru-sama find a cure for my condition? Is this the reason you woke me?" You could hear the rawness in his voice from lack of use. "Orochimaru-sama has found someone who might be able to help us make use of you yet. All we have to do is help him first. This is where you come in. You get to teach little Inari-kun how to use your bloodline, and he'll provide the base for what your body should be like. With that info, we should be able to extend your lifespan significantly, if not remove the sickness altogether." With a whip of his head to the right, Kimimaro had started staring Inari down in an attempt to make him squirm. Inari just sat there wondering if he was supposed to initiate the conversation. "You're from the Kagaya clan, I have been told, and can see," Kimimaro stated while tapping the two dots above his head. "And you don't know how to check if you have Shikatsumiyaku? Have you tried channeling chakra to your bones?" That's all it took for me. If there was any other emotion left inside Inari, other than love for his root family and bloodlust, he would have been red with embarrassment. "We had not considered that it would be so easy. I'll give it a shot here." Holding out his wrist from his body, he asked again to be sure. "Just chakra? Any specific bone or way of adding chakra?" Sighing, Kimimaro started explaining more. "All right, so all humans have chakra going throughout our whole body, right?" Seeing a nod, he kept going. "This is the same for us, but if we add more and imagine the shape in our mind and mold the chakra to guide the bone growing. With imagination and chakra, there's nothing we can't make out of our bones." While understanding the premise, he was still hesitant. Well, it was better now than never, he supposed. Reaching out, he tried as instructed, adding what was a little chakra to himself. To his right hand's index finger, he pointed it at the wall. Several things all happened at the same time. Firstly, Sai had opened the operating room door to find his partner. Secondly, his fingertip had burst open from the inside out. Lastly to happen was an overusage of chakral, making the bone he wanted to grow out about a foot long, grow several feet long instead, and embed itself into the wall. The silence only hung in the room for about 5 seconds before Kabuto started clapping. Turning to ask for help on how to deal with this, he could see that Kimimaro was already over the shock. Well, I suppose congratulations are in order, but if you want to break down the bone, no, you can't shrink it down. You have to channel chakra with the intent of breaking down at a spot. Try it now. Looking chakra to the tip of the finger spear stuck in the wall, it essentially started to shrink. Holding up the now almost foot-long bone growth, Inari tried breaking it down before the tip. Grabbing the end that fell off, he held it, feeling only a little bit of ambient chakra, and fading fast, he tested the strength by trying to snap it. The hollow-sounding snap echoed throughout the laboratory. Turning to look at his clansman about to ask a question, he saw that he had his hand held up, stopping Inari's questions before they could start. As much as I would like to go over the intricacies of our shared bloodline, I believe it would be best to let Kabuto-san continue with his work on us. Stepping down from the life support machine that Kimimaro was hooked up to, he started, always trying to be the gentleman. But he is correct, Inari-kun, I do need some samples from you. I'll be taking some bone marrow samples and seeing the difference between the two of you. Now, Inari, our anesthetic won't work on you, so you'll have to tough it out. Practically laughing, that last line out was lost on only half of the occupants in the room. The other half just knew he was a sadist. The large syringe was off-putting to say the least, but if it's for Danzo-sama, no price is too large. But that syringe was. The process included sticking the needle in the right spot, which was rather quick, but annoying since he kept healing the whole time, making Kabuto have to restart. Alright, that's about it, Inari-kun. Just go and play with your new bloodline for now. Kimimaro will be out quickly. He just needs a little wake me up. Being no reason to stay, Sai and Inari moved out of the room, sitting on the benches directly outside of the room. Do you feel any different? Sai prodded. Giving himself a once-over mentally, he noted that he didn't really. I feel no changes in my body, unless I use the Shikatsumiyaku, which I need to get used to. Did you know all I had to do was channel chakra to my bones? Emphasizing the point, Inari grew a spike out of his finger slowly, first watching as the bone pushed against the skin from the inside. The pressure seemed to build up, violently bursting out with a minute amount of blood spray. The wound surprisingly did not bleed around the bone growth. The amount of practical applications for growing spikes is very high. Is it very chakra draining? Shaking his head in denial at the question, he broke down the bone. So I can make any shape? Let's give it a try. Starting with his fingertip again, which had already healed over, he grew 2 bone tips. Adding height while making them spin slowly, he formed a, while not perfect, double helix with no interconnecting bars. Trying to add the bars in between the two was the hard part, as the chakra already in the bone made it hard, but not impossible to do. Instead of breaking down the bone, he tried the opposite. Pumping extra chakra to the inside of the bone, he imagined it getting stronger. Dissolving the bits that connected his hand to the helix, he removed it from his palm and handed it to Sai. See if you can break this. I reinforced it with chakra. Holding it, Sai thought about how to go about going with the best solution at the moment. He placed it on the floor, thankful for its not so perfect design as it didn't roll. Deciding that stomping on it would be a good test, he gave it all he had, and all he got out of it was a sore leg. You could almost see the excitement light up in Inari's eyes if you looked deep enough. I finished my work with your master, and you two are playing out here in the hall? What happened to being rude shinobi? Being reprimanded by Orochimaru wasn't a pleasant experience, but they had to treat him the same as Danzo-sama. Almost getting the words out of their mouths, they were cut off. I'm joking, of course, I know you're testing the limits. Here, let me try. Picking up the helix, Orochimaru gave a small exhale of amusement with the shape. Giving it a quick once-over, he grabbed it by the 2 different ends. The snap that echoed surprised them both. The Sannin seemed to almost relish the stare they gave the bonework. Well, I can tell you're surprised. Don't be. Kimimaro went through the same thing you are right now. You see, even though you pump this, throwing the pieces up and catching them with one hand, full of chakra, it fades fast because it's not connected to you and your chakra, and its strength comes from chakra. Both of the operatives mirrored back at the same time. Thank you for the knowledge, Orochimaru-sama. This was very helpful. Now, all I did was tell you what I already knew, and you would soon too. Now, Inari-kun, You and I have to go work on those whiskers of yours. So follow me. We'll be right beside your precious Danzo-sama. I'll leave a clone for Kimimaro and Kabuto. So you can come too, Saikuin. So how long have you been serving root? Or are you not allowed to tell me? The question, while innocent to Inari, had a lot of strings attached, and Orochimaru knew how to make someone dance with those strings. Danzo-sama told me that I was born into root, and he personally saw to raising me. Danzo-sama told me that my parents died in the field for Konoha, and such a death is something to be proud of. Orochimaru knew the whole truth. He knew that this child on the medical table's real name wasn't Inari. He knew it was Naruto. Jiraiya wouldn't shut up about him when he first went missing. Did he care about who he was? No, not really. He just wanted to see how this all played out. It's just a pity that he was a Jinchuriki and couldn't become his vessel. He has Uzumaki blood, Shikatsu Miyaku, and the Nine Tails. He could become a one-man army destroyer one day. Really? How was growing up being raised by Danzo? It was great. Danzo-sama taught Sai, and what it meant to be a real shinobi, to separate your emotions and act on orders only. He also taught us about his sensei, the Naidame Hokage, Tobarama Senju. It all sounds very interesting, but I'm going to have to stop you there as we're at the part that's gonna hurt, stated Orochimaru calmly. The metal table was the only solace Inari could find, the blinding pain on his face making his mind go blank. All for the sake of hiding his whiskers. You know, I heard a tale about a missing boy about 8 years ago. He was kidnapped in the middle of the Kyuubi attack. His name was Naruto Uzumaki. My former teammate, Jiraiya, was looking for him up and down. Staying quiet for a second as he focused on the current movement of the scalpel. After seemingly satisfied with the scalpel work, he continued his story. Jiraiya looking for the missing child was how I got away so easily. No one bothered to look at what I was doing. Oh, look at me rambling. Well, we're almost done here. Inari-kun, just bear with it a little longer. The metal tools carving into his face distracted him from the words Orochimaru were saying, but a few of them came clear into his ears. Naruto Uzumaki, wasn't that the fourth Hokage's missing son? Well, that's irrelevant news. Most of Root already knew about that. The clink of the scalpels and knives being put down clued him into the fact that it was over. Seeing a mirror was offered, he took it. Looking into it, he saw his whiskers were gone, replaced by only slightly marred skin. Thank you. Orochimaru-sama, you have done me a great service. Oh, I only did as agreed. Now Danzo should be getting out of his surgery soon too. I am, after all, the one doing it. Seeing the mini-Root member's head tilt, he continued explaining. I'm just a clone. The real me is working on your master. Acknowledgement flew across Inari's eyes, and he moved to sit outside to await his master's surgery to be finished. The hours that passed seemed to pass almost instantly for the pair of mini-Root need. But when the final minute passed and Danzo stepped out, they could see the difference in the skin texture and tone from the new arm that was attached. Sai, Inari, any updates you need to give? Standing at attention, the both of them prepared their individual reports. Hi, Danzo-sama. I have found out that I do in fact have the Shikatsu Miyaku. I will continue training with it until further notice. Danzo-sama, I will be learning curse seals from Orochimaru-sama. He had a clone show me a few and can see the possible combat applications. They would be further augmented by my ink jutsu. One could practically feel pride coming off of the leader, if you weren't a pair routine, that is. Glad to see that his shinobi weren't ones to sit around without orders. He started talking. Good. I'm glad to see that we've all gained from being here. Come now, we have to meet Orochimaru again. Starting to walk, he kept explaining. The unfortunate news I have to give is that you two will be staying here, as it's much easier for me to sneak back into Konoha by myself than it is to leave with the two of you. As such, you two will be coming back when the arrangements have been made. Who will be guarding your return? Ever the loyal Nin, Inari spoke up, worried for his master. No one will be. I'll be reverse summoned via summoning jutsu. Baku, my summons will be the one doing it. Tanuki's work on summons has come quite a ways, stopping outside of Orochimaru's personal office to straighten himself out. After all, you do have to look good for business partners, lest they think less of you. The doors only made a noise against the door stoppers to signify their opening. Danzo, I trust the new arm is suiting you. Well, no burning or tearing feelings. Good, well, let's get down to business then. Your little shinobi are fine to stay, as long as they don't cause any trouble and do as I ask, maybe a mission or two. I don't think that's asking too much, now is it? I see no issue, as long as the mission doesn't hurt Konoha or Root's goals in any way. I'll be picking them up in a month's time, so keep that in mind. Turning to his trainees, he started speaking again. I'll be sending your missions through Seiyasync Bird Jutsu, so keep me updated on what you're doing. Hi, Danzo-sama. Well, I suppose that I'll be taking my leave, Kuchiyos no Jutsu. Expecting Danzo to be gone, they were all surprised when they saw a baby Baku instead, its tiny trunk giving a small toot. Have me summoned to headquarters. Disappearing after being informed, it left a cloud of smoke. I look forward to your progress. Remember 1 month. And with a final poof, Danzo Shimura was no longer at Odogakure. Turning to look at their temporary new master, they kneeled, awaiting instructions. Well, aren't you two the ever-loyal servants? I don't have a mission for you yet, but let's get you set up in your rooms, shall we? Come now. I don't want to have to tell you twice. The endless maze of twists and turns, while confusing the first time, was easier now that they could see the markings leading each way. Finally reaching their destination, they saw their lodgings for the month. They each had the exact same matching rooms. The room was very barebones, a bed and a nightstand with a dresser against the wall. Thank you for the lodging, Orochimaru-sama. Turning to his pale-haired partner, he stared. Thank you very much, Orochimaru-sama. I hope that we can work very well together. Ah. Thank you for the respect and manners. I'll send someone to come get you for dinner, so be ready soon. Taking his leave, Orochimaru thought to himself, I wonder how those two will mix it up around here. Dinner with Orochimaru, Kabuto, and the Sound 5 was rapidly turning out to be an interesting experience. The cacophony of chaos had started when Tayuya asked, who the fuck are these two? Hearing the swear started the complaints from Jirobo, telling Tayuya that she should act more ladylike. Kadamura started laughing, when in retaliation for being told to act differently, Tayuya swung a fist into Jirobo, making him bump into Sakan. Sakan, knowing that this was one step away from turning into a full-on fight, tried to act quickly to stop them. Trying to separate Tayuya and Jirobo, who were scrapping like two fresh genins, was proving to be a little tough, and ended up being a three-way fight in the end. Kadamaru, after receiving a glare from Kimimaro, also stepped into the fight, attempting to stop the miniature brawl. Kadamaru had stopped the fight with each of his 3 sets of arms grabbing each brawler. That had made peace for about 3 whole seconds, until they all overpowered the weaker Kadamaru. Orochimaru was shaking his head and sighing over this whole ordeal as if it was common. Kabuto looked at Kimimaro pointedly, and the moment they locked eyes, he stood up. Inari watched with great interest as his sensei and Shikatsu Miyake got up and strolled over to the fight, and raised each arm at the 2 brawlers. With a burst of the flesh, 2 semi-hand-looking bone growths shot out from each arm, latching onto the necks of all 4 of them, ending the fight. Enough. We have guests, and you try this again in front of Orochimaru-sama? I expect an apology from the 3 of you. Kadamaru at least knew not to get involved. He was just too weak to stop you 3 from and your childish brawl. After the mumble of apologies and a return to their seats, Sai spoke up. So you settle things with fighting in Odogakure? We do the same en route. When us trainees disagree, we are told to fight our differences out. At this point, even Orochimaru was looking on at the story, intrigued. We also practice fighting each other whenever and wherever we can, so we are always prepared for a fight. Danzo-sama says it's practice fighting in all environments. I still remember the time someone brought a kunai to the showers en route. It was a quick cleanup. He was so mad that someone had broken his sword. The silence that followed was only interrupted by the motion of Inari's nodding, remembering all the spars. Well, I guess that would keep you on your toes. But how do you guys work together then? I couldn't trust someone if I always had to keep an eye on them. The question seemed rather odd to the temporary shinobi. The mission is all that matters to Root. Personal feelings should be removed from a proper shinobi. Danzo-sama taught Sai that, and he has never led Root astray. Inari moved, picking up his plate. Where do you put the plates? Training with Kimimaro was hard, almost hell-like, but one doesn't come from Root without being able to take some rough training. There was the one time he had to fight a bear with no chakra. That was pathetic. I'm not wasting my time on you, am I? Ever since Kabuto started figuring out what a Kagaya's body should be like, he had been trying new treatments on Kimimaro to much greater effect. Are you even trying? Or are you like all the others and just no-name trash? Honestly, if it wasn't for Danzo, Inari probably would be another blood-raving lunatic from the Kagaya clan. Definitely not to say that Inari doesn't suffer from it, just knows how to keep it down. I am trying. I just require more practice. The weapons are just coming out terribly shaped, bumpy and dull. Kimimaro looked off in the distance at this, seemingly lost or reminiscing. Take your time to practice your bone molding, since you won't learn my style of fighting with Shikatsu Miyake. I will. When do we next spar? Sighing at the sarcasm flying straight over his head, he turned back to Inari and kept talking. We'll meet tomorrow morning again at the same time. We'll be training your shape manipulation. Breaking down the current spike he had, Inari started walking to his partner, who was studying a scroll. Sai had been studying plenty of scrolls ever since Orochimaru had seen what his ink jutsu could do. What are you studying? Is it more cursed seals? Orochimaru had quite the knowledge in the cursed seal department. After seeing what they could do, Sai had been studying them ever since. Yes, I found one that will para dash, interrupted by an approaching Sakan. They stopped. Oi, can you not hear me? I said go report to Orochimaru-sama. He said something about a message from Danzo. Good, you're not too late. Danzo sent word of a mission for you too. He won't tell me anything, so there's more information on the target in the dossier. Now get out of my office. Being shoved out the double doors and having them shut on their faces was nothing new for the pair. Moving on to more pressing matters, they both opened up their dossiers. Jingo is a missing nin from Kirigakure no Sato, has recently been casting an auditory genjutsu, making any who hear it a loyal follower of his. You are to assassinate him and any of his followers who pose a threat. Knowledge on the technique requested, but not mandatory information for root. Recommended method is contactless assassination. Do not listen or let him speak to you. Missing nin Jingo's genjutsu is auditory as previously described. The moment you hear it, you are most likely caught in it. We have one Kunoichi inside the inner circle of his followers. She was an agent we had in the Land of Silence. She had somehow managed to break the genjutsu and reported that she needed assistance taking the land back. We're assisting her to prevent this issue from spiraling out of control. She was hunted down and killed. There was a samurai we managed to make contact with and form an agreement of ridding them of him in return for loyalty. Make contact with this samurai just outside of the Land of Silence. Skills. Sensor type, highly genjutsu skilled, is a jonin from Kirigakure, so expect some skill with kenjutsu. Burn after reading. Did any of the seals you practiced with Orochimaru-sama have the ability to mute someone? I have one, but I need a bit of time to get it off. Do you have a technique that we can use for assassination? The words had just left his mouth before Inari raised one hand, pointed a finger at the wall and grew his fingertip into a spike before embedding it into the concrete wall. All of this happened in less than a second of Inari's hand being raised and pointed. The speed was mildly shocking. That should work. We just have to hide, do our setup, and get close enough for the kill. Can you think of any issues? The sudden tilt of the pair's heads in unison signaled the duo thinking. Sai, the slightly more analytical of them, spoke up first. What's the backup plan in case of failure with Plan A? We'll call it. A backup plan was something that they were taught en route that if they could, they should plan a backup plan out. We'll take one out of Tsubomi's plans and just bring explosive notes. The native root explosive mistress was quite proficient with them. She usually brings 5 stacks of them when that issue happens. Do we even have that many? That almost put a hole in the backup plan. But can't you just make some? I can make a bone plate for you to write the seal on. We could make as many as we need. Sai only stared for a few seconds and nodded, accepting the solution. Starting to walk, Sai motioned that they should leave the training grounds, as the more common shinobi were moving into the training grounds. Looking over at his root brother, Inari threw an elbow into him. This is our first actual mission, not just bandit cleanup for Konoha. We shouldn't expect any issues. Danzo-sama will be pleased. Inari would be sure of no issues. He would take care of them for Danzo-sama. Minato was usually a very charismatic person when he was trying to get something he wanted, but when he had to be serious, everyone could tell he wasn't joking around. The most common occurrence of serious Minato was bringing up his kidnapped child, and that's when Raza the Yondaime Kazekage knew he fucked up. The meeting had been called for the terms of the upcoming Chunin exam being held in Suna. All had been going well until the topic of children had been brought up. They had been discussing their children, their strengths, their goals, and such. This was fine until Raza's child Gaara was brought to attention by Minato, who said, "You should try to connect with him a little bit. He is still your son." This pricked Raza the wrong way, who purposely chose to treat his son that way. I'm not going to take lessons on child raising from someone who can't keep track of all of them. Even the ANBU were wondering if they should stop their Hokage from doing anything that could result in an international incident, with the temperature dropping about 5 degrees. What did you say, Raza? I couldn't hear you over accepting the missions the Wind Daimyo keeps offering us. Now that was a low blow. After all, both of them knew that the feudal lord was trying to find less barbaric shinobi. The only rise he got out of his matching numbered ruler was a slight opening of his eyes before they went back to their regular size again. That really would put stress on our alliance, would it not? Yes. Yes, it would. All I'm saying is spend some time not trying to murder your son. He is still a human after all. I'm not saying to just completely stop training him, or even stop being stern. I'm just saying all you should do is treat him a little better. Raza was honestly surprised at the little jab Minato took at the alliance, being the peace-loving man he was. Maybe trying for Gaara to be a weapon through his current means wasn't working as well as he had hoped. A little variety and training wasn't bad. I'll consider it, but only as long as we keep getting our missions, Hokage Dano. Now the Chunin exams are being held in IWA this year. I was wondering if you were sending any teams to go. Minato had been prepared for the more political maneuvering questions than he had been for the personal life of the Yondaime Kazekage. The real question he was asking, behind his original one, was if he trusted IWA to play fair. Yes, we've already gotten 3 teams to sign up for the exam, and we may have more going in due time. I believe they'll do good this year. He honestly did too. There were a few Jinin that he saw making rank. I'll consider sending some of my own then too. After all, if your ally sends some, it would almost be an act of cowardice not to. Telling Orochimaru that they were leaving went with little interruptions, apart from Kimimaro giving Inari a stern talking to about trying to control his bloodlust in a fight better. The trip wouldn't take too long. The tricky part of the journey would be hiking up the mountains of the Land of Silence. The earthen peaks that rose all around the country acted as a natural defense. Having a few shinobi climb them wasn't too taxing on resources. The amount of materials you'd need to move a forest to take over a country wouldn't be worth it to most commanders, making this 2-man operation simple, if not a little difficult. Their inside woman was a tough one to find. The exact location she was waiting wasn't specified, only that she was waiting on the outskirts. The first plume of smoke they found was just some campers. They didn't even notice the pair look at them and dash off. When they finally stumbled upon their mark, each of them could see clear indications that said Kunoichi had been settled for a while. The leaves piling up on either side of her tent, the amount of ash in the fire pit. The Kunoichi was of a taller than average stature, with black hair in a ponytail. The sword on her hip pointed towards her inclination towards combat arts, her left hand resting on the pommel of the katana. Knowing this was most likely their way and they approached. Akiko was having a shitty time if she was to be honest. Finding out that there was a missing nin taking over someone's country usually made people less than happy. Also waiting for a helping hand she hadn't expected, even if there were strings attached. It wasn't fun being told to escape to the outer edges of your village and to wait for 2 shinobi. That was also something that irked her. They didn't need 2 child operatives, they needed like 30 skilled nin. Are you 2 from Rudash? The speed at which the hand latched onto her face was terrifying. Getting stares from both of them instantly made her silent without struggle. The paler one started talking, before the other one started slowly removing his hand, almost ready to jump back into position. Do not mention our group's name out in the open. Do you know who's around? The threat of violence did not need to be spoken. I'm sorry, I was just praying it was you guys. I'm almost at the end of my rope here. So how do you 2 want to get this plan of operation started? The sooner she was back to her village, the sooner she could free it from tyranny. The sooner the tyranny was lifted, well, the better. Hearing a voice, Akiko looked at the duo. The paler of the group was the one to speak up again. How will we be entering the Land of Silence? If you were waiting out here, would that not mean they might be keeping an eye out for you inside the town? The way out of a village was usually already hard to find, without being detected. But to infiltrate a village you don't know the layout or anything about was something on the harder side of things. Inari's inner monologue was disturbed by the recent smiley addition to their group. Oh, I planned for this. Here were these. They're meant for someone of a bigger stature, but it should work. Looking at the offered cloth, they could see that it was colorful and attention-grabbing. Not really what they wanted. You plan on sneaking in as performers? Wouldn't that attract too much attention? I know that a disguise is necessary, but this might just get us caught instead. Wearing something like fancy merchant clothes would get them by nice, but might get them in trouble when they have to sign their names. Oh, all you super serious shinobi types are all the same. They're looking for intruders. They'd be wearing dark colors to blend in, not people wearing bright colors who are just going to walk in the front door. That's very possible. They'd have to bring this up to Danzo-sama. Maybe he could wear orange. Inari always loved orange. Well, what are we waiting for? Let's go. So let me get this straight. You 3 are part of a traveling act? The girlie is a sword swallower and you 2 are jugglers? I'm no genius, but I know there's more to a traveling act than that, so where's the rest of your band? The plan had gone off great. No one asked any questions and they got in. The issue had popped up when a shinobi had come by, asking questions like he was interrogating them. The nervous glances the root shinobi were receiving from their lead and weren't too reassuring. This might get messy. Well, I thought I told you to stop harassing the circus folks. This is like the 3rd time, man. What is it with you? Every time some circus comes through, you interrogate them. Geez, I'm sorry about this guy. Their savior had rambled on and on. Have you 3 already done your check-in? Before this nut job harassed you? Receiving a trio of nods, he smiled. Welcome to the land of silence. Please don't let this interruption ruin your stay. The inn they were staying in was quaint, but still clean. Plus it was cheap even if the price still put tears in Akiko's eyes. Now that they had a base, to say the least, they could get to the real work. Now that we're all safely here, Sai, and I will continue with the plan. You stay here for now. This would have been the end of discussion with a routine, but Akiko wasn't one. Wait, what am I doing then? I can't let two people I hardly know do all the work. I'll just tag along. Inari rose to deal with this challenge. Why couldn't people just follow orders? No, you will stay here. We already have a plan, and you would only interfere with the set plans. Honestly, why can't people just listen? No, I'm not going to wait around while someone else fights for my village. I'm going to fight for it too. Do you think I'm just a weak girl who can only use a sword? I'll have you know that I'm an actual samurai from the Tetsu no Kuni. The old man just sent me out into the world to get more experience. Inari was just about ready to tell Sai just to put a seal on this samurai and be done with this arguing. Instead, Sai moved forward. Who is this old man you refer to? Sai was getting info to leverage and make her back down. Who knows with these never-give-up types? Huh? Oh, the old man's name is Mifune. If Root hasn't trained them to remove emotion, it certainly taught them to not show it. That training came in handy, as neither Inari or Sai showed any emotion when they heard the disrespectful way of referring to the master samurai and lord of Tetsu no Kuni. He's so forgetful sometimes. I bet he doesn't even know I'm here. Like he sent me here like 2 years ago, and I've received like 3 letters. Then that guy Django came and took over the daimyo's position, and my friends are all scared. She's never going to accept, no, is she? Looking at his Root brother, he started making hand signs that only Root would understand. Should we let her in as a backup plan? Or as something? You could practically see the gears turn in Akiko's head, trying to understand the sign language. Maybe she would be good for a distraction at the least. Most samurai are good at direct confrontation. Plus, we do have all the explosive notes from Tsubomi-senpai. Seeing a nod from Sai, he let their temporary third member in on the plan. We have 2 options for your presence in our plans. Either you act as a distraction, getting Django's attention and his associates. The other option is that you act as a backup just in case we get discovered. Option A has a higher chance for mix-ups. Keep in mind, it didn't take any detective work to know which option Akiko preferred. Her eyes practically gleamed at the chance for direct confrontation. I'll take option A. I want to show that bastard Django what happens when you mess with a samurai and her friends. Well, then that settles it. Sai and I will process with the assassination once you cause a scene. For now we rest. I'll keep first watch. I gotta get my armor though. If I'm gonna be a distraction, I gotta have like the best chance at making it out alive. I'll be back in a couple of hours. Don't worry. Almost skipping to the door, she opened it quickly, turned around, gave a smile and waved to the 2 boys and left. She didn't get a smile back, but she got a wave. Waiting a few good seconds, Sai spoke up. Inari, are we heading back to Konoha after this? Or are we heading back to Orochimaru-sama after ? The sentence was cut off by their temporary third member barging in, scratching the back of her head. Hey guys, I totally forgot it would be suspicious to drag some samurai armor around town. Ha ha ha. Guys, the sight of a long spear-like object coming out of Inari's palm, and Sai holding several kunai at the ready scared her a lot. Whoa guys, calm down, it's just me. Not gonna hurt you. Just need some help to smuggle my armor. I also forgot my sword, hee. Sai looked at Inari. Inari nodded and dissolved his bone spear. Sai stood up and holstered his kunai. I can seal your armor and sword until tomorrow. Do you know how to unseal things? Well, I didn't pay much attention in the academy part of my training. Like who needs to know how different diplomats act or which countries we allow into the Tetsu no Kuni? I just need to swing my sword, right? And the old man was always hounding me, saying, you're gonna wish you knew this, and I always said, no way, old man. He always told me at least you hold your promises, Akiko. Like I always said, yeah, I never go back on my word like WH-. A loud clap interrupted the further rambling of the samurai. Both Sai and Inari had enough. As nice as it was to hear that story, we have big plans and we need to get you ready. So you and I are going to go get your armor, seal it, and I will teach you how to unseal it. Understand? And Inari let out a mental sigh of relief at Sai and Akiko leaving, mostly Akiko. He had a lot of explosive notes to write, and writing those while someone chattered on is less than ideal. We're back. Did you miss Big Sis Akiko? We are back. Objective accomplished. How goes the explosive notes? Completely ignoring Akiko, Inari kept talking with Sai. Good. I did not make as many as I had hoped I would, but 152 should be enough for a backup plan. You could practically see the smoke blow out of Akiko's ears. If one note could destroy a storefront, what the hell would that mini do? What the hell do you need so many for? Are you trying to get us all killed? Why would we kill ourselves unless ordered to? We're worth too much to our master alive. No, these are the backup plan. Our senpai always used these for a backup plan. So I was thinking that Inari made enough for overkill. But isn't overkill just being extra thorough? We'll sleep now that you finally have your gear. The explosives are prepped and Sai. You and I all know the plan. Akiko, don't forget earplugs. Getting in was easy. The guards didn't have any advanced sensors. Getting by the guards was easy. Killing them after was easier. Inari was getting fluent with his bone spears while Sai was getting excellent experience with his tanto. Next came the sneaking around and climbing into position for Inari, while his partner in assassination planted several groups of explosive notes, just in case. Crawling through the rafters is easy. Doing it in root gear that has an armor plate in the chest area wasn't easy. But if they couldn't do it, they shouldn't be Danzo-sama shinobi. Now that Inari was in position and had just enough of an angle to see and attack, so he awaited the signal from Akiko. A small sound that wouldn't be heard beyond Inari was heard to his left. Upon looking, he saw it was Sai who had settled down. The two of them are now waiting, oh so patiently. Time was something that usually Akiko didn't keep track of, being the carefree individual everyone called her. Today was very different though. She was giving Inari and Sai a 10-minute head start on their part of the job. Patience was not among her specialties. But if you wanted to become the master samurai of the Tetsu no Kuni, you gotta learn it. Fuck patience. Running up the stairs, she swung her sword 2 times. That's all it took to drop the pair of guards at the front door. Sheathing her sword, she looked at their faces. They only had shock to indicate they at least knew of the attack. Next came the large doors to the former daimyo's and current tyrant's home. She had to be the distraction, right? With a kick, the doors slammed open, and there stood a samurai, sword in the sheath and ready to draw again. Jingo, on my honor as a samurai, I come to free my people from your tyranny. And there he was, sitting on the throne, the man of the day. Django, missing mean from Kirigakure and usurper of the land of silence. Clapping. Not that Akiko could hear it, but clapping was seen from the tyrant. Somehow he managed to look stuck up in the act of just getting up from his chair. I applaud the boldness of attacking me directly, but someone wouldn't do that unless they're an idiot or powerful. You seem to be the latter, so why don't we talk this out? Maybe we can reach a conclusion without any more violence. I have no idea what you said. Just know I've come for your head. With that statement, she stood proud, watched as Jingo sat down and motioned for his small band of ninjas to attack. Deflecting kunai was the first thing they were taught in the Tetsu no Kuni, to the point it became an instinct. The first 2 Sari shinobi who charged here had a decent idea of teamwork, with one forming hand signs and the other charging in with a sword, against a samurai. Second lesson most samurai learned was if you see a shinobi making hand seals, stop them. Dashing forward to make the sword's lady brace for dueling, she danced around them and sheathed her sword. The shinobi who had been forming hand signs had seen Akiko going to his partner and hoped that she would hold the samurai off long enough. He had started fumbling his hand signs when the samurai dashed around and charged him. True fear was felt when the samurai drew her sword from its position, and all he had were stumps where his hands used to be. He didn't have time for any other thoughts as the following slice took his head. Turning to the remaining opponent, she flicked the blood off of her katana and sheathed it. It almost looked like a duel with the sudden pacing around in a circle they did. Too bad for the third lesson. Don't give a shinobi time to think. Kicking her sandal off at her opponent, she charged before it even hit the sword wielder. And it was over like that. Sword drawn out of the sheath and a clean cut through the major neck arteries. Whatever they were called. Jingo, you're next. Honestly, neither Sai or Inari could blame Akiko for blowing their cover on the assassination. The bone spear was right behind his head, just about 1 foot away and ready to puncture his head and scramble his mind. The only thing that gave it away was Akiko's falter in her glare on Django. She looked behind him at it, and so did he. Inari went with what little he could and stabbed forward, almost killing him, but he had already moved before Inari started his actions. What resulted wasn't the instantaneous brain scrambling. Instead, Django received a leaking puncture wound to the neck. Reacting quickly, Django struck the length of bone before Inari could harden it sufficiently and broke the end that was in him off. Shuffling away, clutching the bone that was in his neck, he tore some cloth off of his shirt and wrapped it around his neck to try and stop some of the bleeding. I wasn't a jonin for nothing, you know. I won't be taken out by 2 brats and a samurai. Noting that he was forming hand signs, Akiko charged, hoping to end the fight before it started. She reached in front of the man, drew her sword and almost reached his hands, but knew she was fucked when he let a smug smile reach her eyes. stopping his signs and using a speed most jonin had, kicked her away with a force that was none too kind. Next came down the duo of brats, couldn't tell who they were, if they were important because of their face masks. Both of them drew swords that were missing their tips. Did he piss off Tetsu no Kuni? Well, best deal with the brats. But what chance did they have? Sprinting towards the two, he quickly did his hand signs and announced, Swayed in no jutsu, water style, water bullet technique. A surge of 4 water bullets followed that command, one after the other. All they had time to do was duck behind a quickly formed bone shield, spiraling out of Inari's wrist. A testament to the skill of Django was that the edges of the shield were chipped and broken. That shield had been reinforced with as much chakra as could be grabbed in that moment. Seeing the shield, Django pondered, is that Earth release? But where did he get the stone? Hearing an ink and bottle behind him, Inari knew that Sai was at work making a seal. Now the name of the game was defense, his specialty. Pulling his tanto from his back, he readied for any conflict from the front, just in time for several kunai to be launched at him. The distinctive clang of metal deflecting metal was lost on both root members, courtesy of some earplugs. A flurry of hand signs and water rising was the only warning for Inari, before a torrent of swait and jutsu were unleashed onto him. Seeing the issue of water messing with Sai's ink, Inari reached out and made a dome of bone around Sai, leaving one arm to make a dome for himself as well. The waves rocked against the dome, threatening to break through the shell. Reinforcing the dome put less worry into Inari's heart. Once the sound of the water colliding with the reinforcement had stopped, he could hear metal clashing very rapidly. Dissolving the barrier to peer outside, both of the root members saw Akiko, unrelentingly slashing at Django. They can see that she was giving no time for any counterattacks. She was slashing as fast as she could. All Django could do was defend lest he be maimed. Getting a tap on his shoulder, he saw Sai was done with the seal. Looking at the seal, he realized he had no idea what it did. Quickly seeing his partner staring, he signaled, Paralysis seal, get it to touch him for it to trigger. Ah yes, that's what it was. I'll get on it. See what you can find on Django's Jinjutsu. With that announcement, his partner dashed away, hopefully scrounging something from this mess of a job. Now came the fun part for Inari, combat. Holding the paralysis seal in his right hand, he thought on how to apply this without getting in the way. A spear should do the trick, or anything really. Akiko knew she wasn't that wise, smart, or respectful, but she was damn good with a sword. But this man was beginning to tire her out. He realized she had the upper hand when she had launched a surprise attack and had focused solely on defending. That was the beginning. Django had clearly earned his rank of Jonin, as even though she wasn't a full-fledged samurai, she was faster than most middle-class shinobi and was being slowly pushed back by him. Now she was slowly backing up, slashing and deflecting with her all, at least until the back of her foot hit something and fell to the floor. Looking up through her samurai mask, she saw Django, thrusting down toward her. Watching as her life flashed before her eyes, she smiled because it was an honorable death at least. Akiko's end didn't come from the kunai. The loud thud interrupted everything. When she opened her eyes, she saw a large javelin embedded into the wall, almost impaling Django in the stomach. Looking to her left, she saw Inari, javelin stabbed into the ground all around him, and one in his hand. Seeing the shinobi, no, this child interfered when he had almost won. Mad Django seethed with anger. I told you all, you won't kill me here. I still have so much to do. He was an excellent shinobi. It was almost a shame to see him losing himself to his emotions. Oh well, any shinobi who let their emotion get the best of them shouldn't be one. By this time, Akiko had stood up and gotten back into her stance, sword sheathed and ready for drawing. Inari was thinking of how he could make this work with the seal Sai gave him. Oh, that might work. Instead of javelins, he needed to rush the nuke. This could get troublesome fast. Akiko, seeing that Inari was running, and decided to run in as well. 2-on-1 was favorable odds. Django stood his ground. It had worked before, and he had no better alternatives. When just in reach of a spear hit, Inari raised his right hand and pointed his index finger. The bone spear shot out, at blinding speeds, intent on putting a hole in Django's forehead. What Inari expected was for him to dodge. What had happened instead was he dodged, but managed to break the spear, leaving Inari running forward with a broken weapon. Django, thinking that Inari was open, charged him, still keeping a hand free to guard against the samurai right behind the child soldier. He expected the left hand to come down, so he smacked it out of the way, leaving open space for Django to stab. A thunk was heard, not the sound of flesh, as Inari had improvised some bone plating where the kunai was going to strike. All he got in return was a slap on the shoulder from the right hand that he had broken the weird spear off of. Django inwardly smirked. If that's all the kid could do for a counterattack that close, it's an easy win. He would have dashed away to plan his counterattack. At least he would have, if he could move fast enough. Something was slowing him down. The samurai girl was getting dangerously close now, and he could watch everything that the best was doing in slow motion, from the focus in his eyes shift to his stomach rupturing with new spikes. Those spikes had hit him. He saw every second through an adrenaline-induced haze. From them leaving his enemy's body to them hitting him in the center of his body. But he could finally move. First, he used his kunai he still had and broke the connection between himself and the tiny shinobi, and started hand signs. Well, that's what he would have done. All of reality came crashing down with his hand on the floor, removed up till the middle of his wrist. So he did what anyone would do, he screamed. He raged. Swung his regaining hand into the brat's face and sent him flying. It was his fault. He kicked that samurai away. Again. He almost had the samurai girl, and he interrupted their fight. That brat stabbed him with something, and it hurt. But he must have done something to make him slow. Yeah, that's it. No way Jingo, ex-jonin from Kiri, would lose to two brats and a samurai. Wanting revenge, he started moving towards the downed child, his mind going dark from the amount of blood he was losing. When he arrived at the downed kid, he no longer saw Inari. He saw the fourth Mizukichi, Yagura. It's your fault. We all lived happily with the Kekkei Jinkai users. Then you gave the order, and we couldn't stand it. By this point, he was on top of Inari, strangling him. Inari couldn't think straight as he was winded and now being strangled. We only followed Zabuza because he was the strongest one who opposed you. Now I get to see the life leave your eyes. Realizing he was in immediate danger, Inari went full porcupine mode, shooting out bones in all possible ways ahead of him. He hit Jingo in almost all vital organs. But the man proceeded as if possessed. A quick and quiet slash followed by something falling relieved Inari, finally being able to breathe. He dissolved the bone spikes that were protruding into Jingo, seeing his savior Akiko, looking smug. Don't underestimate this samurai, yeah. Standing up, Inari took his earplugs out, Akiko following suit. They looked at the body, head and hand missing. Pulling out a scroll, he sealed it all onto it. You know, Sai would have been really useful to have, like back us up. He moved on to different task. You do not need to worry yourself about him. We won in the end, did we not? You're right. Pumping a fist in the air and doing a dance, Akiko was really the picture of someone happy. A tiny smirk formed on Inari's face, but disappeared the moment it formed. Now you can head back to Konoha and show big sis Akiko around. Time seemed to slow to a crawl at this. Was she actually an enemy spy? How did she find out they worked inside Konoha? Picking up a combat stance with a bone spear ready to shoot out, he demanded. Where did you hear that information? Who is your source? Adopting a stance of universal surrender with her hands up, she asked back. Whoa. What do you mean? About Konoha? I overheard you guys in our hotel room. I just thought you'd be excited. This was their fault, they weren't careful, and she had to pay the price. Listen, I can just forget about it. You know I forget things all the time. Please. For one of the few times in his life Inari was conflicted, he knew what he had to do, and he really didn't want to. That's not how root works. I have to eliminate you. You're going to kill me? Because of something I overheard? Come on, just trust me. Can't you do that? No. I cannot do that. My master's will is more important than anyone else's. So that's what it comes down to then. You just refuse to think for yourself. Try it just for once. Just for me. Inari could feel his own bones creaking under the pressure he was squeezing in his hand. This wasn't something that was easy to choose, but he knew what he had to do. Danzo-sama is everything. As long as he lives, I have purpose. Akiko wasn't blind through her samurai helmet. She saw Inari's eyes gloss over with conviction. She knew she couldn't change his mind anymore. Well, I won't die without my hands on my sword. He didn't speak a word and started throwing bone spikes at her, reaching behind him and throwing forward for momentum, like an endless rain of Saban. Akiko, true to her samurai heritage, was deflecting almost all of them. The bones she didn't deem necessary to deflect bounced off of her armor, piling up on the floor. The exchange stopped with Inari holding a spear and a sword in separate hands. On the receiving end of a spear thrust, she cut the bone spear, surprising Inari, who had in fact reinforced that. Not that he showed it, challenging a samurai to a sword duel. I'm gonna beat some common sense into you. No response, again. Instead, Inari made a finger gun with his left hand and shot a high-speed spike that Akiko barely dodged. With the sword in his right hand, he charged and swung at Akiko, and to his plan, she blocked it. What Akiko didn't expect was for Inari to grow a bone around her sword, the growth covering the entire blade. Quickly thinking, she threw the sword away and swiped a low kick to his left leg. Barely moving from that hit, he shot a spike again at her while she was down low. It seemed she adapted rather quickly, As almost as she had wanted him to do that, she moved around, and the spike landed right beside her helmeted head. Akiko pivoted from her position and threw a high kick right into his face, shattering his lower jaw with her boot. Stumbling back, he spat some blood to the side and fixed his jaw with his shikatsu miyaku. The skin rolled with rapid formation of said bone. Akiko stood with no weapon, so she worked with what she had left and put her fists up ready for hand-to-hand combat, which is why she couldn't do anything when the bone stabbed right into her ribcage. The bone launched from his ribs at her. She didn't know he could do that. Then he threw a spear that pierced her gut. The destruction of her armor sounded deafening with the shock of it all. Falling to one knee, she knew it was over. Pulling out the bone, she lay there bleeding. She could hear his boots as he walked over, coming to finish her off. Akiko looked up, and she could tell that this was it. "Since you saved my life, I'll make it quick." Going down to both knees and taking off her helmet, Akiko bowed her head for execution. At least she could die with some dignity, holding a freshly made needle for a quick cranial nerve carving. "Inari, before I go, you should try to live for yourself, you know? My master's will is my future. That is all I need." She could only let a sad smile out and shake her head at this. "Sorry, Mifuno Jaizen. Looks like the world gave me too much experience." Just staring, Inari pulled out a scroll, eyes locked on her still corpse. Sealing Akiko and her helmet away, he remembered this was for Root. This was for Danzo-sama. Inari trailed over to the samurai's discarded sword, and he reconnected to the bone, breaking down the bone and sealed the sword away separately. Finding Sai was his next objective. Hopefully his mission had turned out for the better. Finding information on Jingo Jinjutsu was turning out to be a rather fruitful search. Well, for everything but the info in the jutsu. There was document after document on plans to trick more and more shinobi into his group. Good thing they stopped him before he had acquired any powerful shinobi. He could have become a threat to Konoha and Danzo-sama. Hearing footsteps behind himself, Sai swung his tanto. Meeting bone-guarded wrists, he saw it was Inari, covered in blood. "I take it the target was killed." Seeing a nod, he continued. "And what of Akiko? Killed? That's regrettable. I was sure the two of you could beat him without casualties." "Oh, maybe he kept a journal on how to do the jutsu on his body. I killed her. She learned we were from Konoha. She overheard us in the hotel. Oh, that is unfortunate. Danzo-sama will not be pleased. He did want to keep a spy here." "Did you check Jingo's body for anything?" Seeing a shake of his partner's head, he grabbed the scroll marked with his name and unsealed him. Body, head, and hand dropped out of the scroll, leaving a blood pool quickly forming. Quickly patting Jingo down, Sai found what he was looking for. It didn't say in complete detail, but Danzo-sama could make it work. "Let's get out of here. Set the fuse for the explosive notes. Give us enough time to reach the outskirts of town, though." With a nod from Sai, the two took off for Odogakure. Stopping at the border to leave, they waited. And waited. Then with enough force to make the ground quake and shake the balance of the two, the building erupted. The ninja manning the borders had started running towards the explosion, and this was their chance. Sai made a bird for him and Inari to ride on, and thought about how Danzo-sama might react to this mission's completion. After knocking on the door and being given permission to walk in, Sai was standing in front of Orochimaru. Currently, the leader of the Land of Sound was reading a science book, most likely. "Hello, Saikuin. How can I help you?" "Orochimaru-sama, I request additional training in Fuinjutsu for the purpose of making myself more useful to Danzo-sama." Something fun must have happened on the mission. "Well, I suppose I might have a bit of free time later." Putting down his book and rummaging around his desk, he continued. "But first, read this. Then, we can talk Fuinjutsu." Catching a book that was tossed at him, Sai saw it read, "Advanced Fuinjutsu Theory." "Yes, Orochimaru-sama. I will finish as soon as possible." "Good. Now please come back later. I have important business right now." "Oh, Danzo, you senile old man. You shouldn't leave such corruptible pawns with me." The moment Inari had found Kimimaro, he was with Kabuto being given more treatments for his illness. When he set foot into the room, Kabuto turned to him and pushed his glasses up. "Ah, Inari-kun, when did you get back?" "Actually, never mind that. Please come here for a moment." Not seeing any reason not to, he complied and stood beside the spectacled medic. A sharp pain in his left arm surprised him, and Kabuto had to move his head to avoid being skewered by Inari's reflex of making a spike. "Well, someone seems to have gotten a little used to their bloodline. I apologize for the lack of warning on my part, but we're on the edge of a breakthrough with Kimimaro-kun here." Walking away with a syringe of his blood, Kabuto didn't say a word, only a look of focus and determination. "Oh, I'm sorry to tell you, but Kimimaro-kun won't be able to train you today, so you'll have to work on your own. He is rather sick still. It was a miracle he lasted while you were away." "Understood. When he wakes, please inform him that I wish to train again." With that, he took off. Sai was studying his book given to him by Orochimaru when Inari opened the door. He seemed to be looking for a training partner. Do you need to finish that book or can you spar? Got it in one guess. I will be furthering my Fuinjutsu with Orochimaru-sama and he told me to finish this first. He said he will not train me until then. Being a part of Root was what gave Sai the power to know that was not what Inari wanted to hear. Sai almost pitied whoever he sparred with in the meantime, as Inari had left with nothing more to talk about between them. Who could I spar with instead? Oh, what about the rest of the Sound 5? The first place Inari had checked was the common training grounds. After all, everyone had to train, right? It seemed this hunch turned out to have some merit as Taiyuya was there. Being the Jinchuriki that he was, the flute that Taiyuya played reached his ears and he was surprised at the softness of the notes hitting his ears. He had heard others play a flute before, but most came out rather harsh and irritating to the ears. Of course, the calming serenade came to a halt when the musician spoke up. What the fuck do you want? Can't you see I'm playing here? Dumbass? She did curse a lot still. Do you want to spar? Taiyuya is a part of Orochimaru-sama's elite guard, so she should have some skill. Oh, fuck off. I'd hate to explain to Orochimaru-sama why you got hurt so bad. Come back in a couple of years, shithead. Some people don't want to fight? Alright, well, do you mind if I train while you play your flute? The sound is nice. Honestly, that was the most ass-backwards half-compliment Taiyuya ever got. Still, a compliment is a compliment, right? Thinking this, she kept playing, watching him just sit there and make spears, and more spears. Wait a minute, do you only know how to make fucking spears? There's more you can do with that bullshit ability of yours. Just look at Kimimaro and how he restrained us during our first dinner. Ah yes, the extra arms that had launched out from himself and essentially chokeslammed everyone. Well, if he could make that, then what else could he make? What about a long pole, with a blade at the end but not a spear? With a look of determination on his face, he attempted to make the weapon he thought of. A few moments later, and the basic shape was coming along with a few imperfections here and there courtesy of the first time making this weapon. When all was said and done, there was a long shaft with a pointy blade at the end. Inari's eyes had a gleam of what looked to be pride in them. Not that most would notice. Taiyuya just looked like someone told a terrible joke. That's a fucking spear, dumbass. You can make more than pointy things, you know, right? This is not a spear. It is a naginata. The look he received after saying that would have left most people offended or upset. Inari just took it because he had no idea what her face scrunching up like that meant. It's a stick with a pointy end on it. To most people, it's a spear, you shithead. Not, it is not. Upon saying that, the naginata was dissolved and Inari didn't defend his point anymore. You must have the imagination of a fucking brick. Try making simpler things like a fucking hammer. Better yet, make something other than a weapon. I know that Kimimaro sometimes makes armor under his skin. Like what? I only need to know things for combat, as my purpose for Root is to Biko Dash. Yeah, fucking perfect weapon for your master blah blah. Hey, I got a question. Are all you bone bastards made to serve, or do you just do it to make you feel good inside? This seemed to hit a chord within the Jinchuriki. Taiyuya knew she had skill at upsetting people. It seemed even those trained against such things were amongst them as well. I will have you know, if it were not for Danzo-sama's intervention, I would have most likely ended up dying somewhere alone in Kirigakure with the rest of my clan. With Danzo-sama, my life has a purpose, and that is to follow his will. Any other reasoning has no purpose in the face of Danzo-sama's will. The redhead only leaned back wide-eyed at this, clearly not expecting this outburst from the normally calm Root shinobi. Whoa, calm down, shithead. I was just making a joke, you know. Just fucking pulling your leg. Jumping back, he looked around confusedly, then looked her dead in the eye. When did you pull my leg? The silence that followed was almost deafening to the redhead. Was he serious? It sits a figure of speech like a go break a leg. Honestly, this was confusing. Who goes telling someone to break a leg? Unless it was someone else's. Yes, that's what they must mean. Whose leg do you want me to break? No, it's a fucking saying. Like a, you know what, shithead? Never mind. Go break a leg. I will do that in the future. Right now I must train. You better train if you want to be able to even fucking touch me, shithead. With that statement, the redhead walked away, playing her flute. Fuinjutsu is something that everyone uses. It all depends. Danzo-sama already had me read this book. Going back to Orochimaru's office, he knocked on the large wooden doors, waiting for permission to be let back inside. You may enter. Pushing open the right door, he looked towards Orochimaru-sama doing paperwork. You haven't finished that book yet, have you? It's only been an hour. That should take you at least 4. Danzo-sama had me read this book before. Would you like me to read a different book? Well, Orochimaru hasn't thought of that possibility. Might as well proceed with his plans. No, that's fine. I'll teach you hands-on. Until you leave, that is. Nodding, Sai proceeded and sat down in front of the desk where Orochimaru was seated. The moment he sat down, the Sannin had gotten a chalkboard from somewhere. As you know, as an experienced Fuinjutsu user, seals are like math in some aspects and like art in others. Almost all of the time, seals only hold things, such as formulas for paralytic seals or explosive seals. The truth is that there is much you can do with this even if they only hold or seal things away. Yes, most competent users of Fuinjutsu know this. I've had the thought for a while of what is the limit of Fuinjutsu. I've seen seals used to retain memories or even body parts, almost immortality if you will. The downside being that another person must be the one to activate the seals as well, or you'd be dead. This idea, it sounds very useful. The ability to keep coming back because of Fuinjutsu, when activated, the seal would return you to what they were set to hold, be it memory or flesh. The drawbacks of such an idea being that this only returns you to when the seals were set, and if the seals are removed you won't come back. Orochimaru-sama, have you tested this out? Disclaimer, I may be the leader of a ninja village, but I'm a scientist first. Danzo and I tested it in the field together with one of his pawns. Of course, there were a few hiccups. I had never heard of such tests being done. You think that's the only thing he hasn't told you? Knowing more about Danzo-sama should be for the better. Honestly, it was easier to lure in someone like a root agent than Orochimaru thought. Too bad it was so easy. I can do that. But first, I need you and Inari-kun to do a little job for me. Danzo did say I could use you too. Looking at his temporary master, Sai waited for him to list the details. I have a wonderful scientist working for me named Amachi. Now, while he is amazing with his projects, he does tend to get himself into trouble. This time he has gotten himself into big trouble. The land of the sea has caught Amachi and currently has him prisoner. I would like you to free him and return him to me. Order it, and it shall be done. Great. I knew I could rely on you, Sai. You may take anyone you think you may need. Sorry, Danzo. Our little partnership has lost its value to me. You called for me, Hokage-sama? Yes, I did, Kakashi. Well, Kakashi knew what he was here for then. In ANBU, your real name doesn't get spoken unless your identity has been revealed, or you're being removed from ANBU. I've let you stay in ANBU for a very long time. I understood the pain you were going through, so I gave you something to devote yourself to instead. You have done very well in your position, but we are in peaceful times for now. I understand, Hokage-sama, but what would I do instead? Instead of a response, he got a stare from Minato, until he realized where he slipped up. It wasn't an angry stare, it was more of a don't call me that type of a look. Sensei, what should I do instead? First thing you should do is give me that mask. It's been a while since I've seen your face. Taking off the mask for more than a basic necessity was the first hurdle of non-ANBU life. It was weird to be without the mask. After so long wearing the thing, it became like a second face to him. That wasn't so bad, was it? Now I want you to come over for dinner tonight. Kushina has been bugging me to make you come for dinner. Now he could rest easy tonight after telling his wife. Kushina had been hinting that she missed the little gray-haired Jonin. Sensei, I've been in ANBU for so long. What should I do now? All the people I considered friends are either dead or still in ANBU. Kakashi, you can do whatever you want. You could meet a cute girl or you could pick up a hobby, but you have to remember you always have friends. If it's not me, it's someone else, you'll see. If you say so, Sensei, and don't worry, I'll be there tonight for dinner. In the meantime, I have to catch up with some people I used to know. Waving back at Kakashi as he left, Minato felt better about today. Paperwork was done and he had no meetings. An early trip home seemed to be in order then. Best let Shikaku know first. Despite her rough early life being a bit rough, Kushina never complained. She had gotten everything she had wanted out of life, a loving husband, a home, and her own children. While she had lost out on being Hokage like she dreamed as a child, she got the next best thing by being married to one, if you asked her though. And while she did have 2 children she very much loved, she was missing one and had been since his birth. This had obviously hurt Kushina in a way no one wanted to be hurt. Kushina was strong emotionally and physically, so instead of crying forever about it, she started taking missions again, praying she might come across those shinobi uniforms again so she could pull the information out of them. Of course, everything had changed when she got pregnant, again. But oh no, neither Kushina or Minato took any chances with this one. They called in Jiraiya to watch outside, and Makoto Uchiha, Kushina's best friend, to watch over this birthing, with an additional platoon of ANBU to watch over them. And as if the gods had heard her prayers, it was a safe delivery with no interruptions of any sort. All there was a child named Yashima, bawling after being born. The next years of her life were some of the best ones she'll ever remember, watching her child grow from an infant to a toddler. And watching as one child grew to two children, the next thing she knew Yashima was asking when she would go to ninja school. So it was usually Kushina and the kids at home while Minato did his Hokage duties. Although today, it seemed Minato would be getting home early. Not that Kushina would know. Mom, what's for dinner? Yes, Kushina loved her family. Food. Would you like to see? Yashima only put up a pouty face at that answer. Clearly not what she wanted to hear. What kind of food dash? A sound of someone arriving by teleportation notified everyone nearby that Minato was home, before dinner was even ready. Minato, ever the happy husband, hugged his wife from behind and pecked her on the cheek. Yashima made gagging noises in the background the entire time. Of course, this made Minato turn to his daughter next. Swooping his 6-year-old daughter up in his arms, he hugged her close as well. I'm home early. All he got was a playful eye roll from his wife and a cry of, "We know," from his daughter, leaving the husband with only one question. I can't help but notice the cheering is one person short. Is Mima sleeping? Yes, he's just taking a quick nap. I was about to wake him up anyways. Walking to Minma's room, Minato disabled the locking seal and knocked on the door. Waiting and knocking again gave the same result as the first knock did. Nothing. Opening the door, he saw his youngest child sprawled out on his bed happily sleeping. Nudging the sleeping child awake, he waited for Minma to open his eyes. Slowly a pair of blue eyes opened and looked at the source of the disruption of his sleep. Seeing that it was his dad, he wasn't alarmed, until he realized that it was his dad. He was home early. Usually Mom woke him up. Papa, yes, I'm here sooner than you're used to. I wanted to wake you up, but you were expecting your mom, weren't you? A nod was all he got as Minma was still sleepy, but waking up slowly. Well, you should hurry up. We have a guest today for dinner. A grunt of K was heard, and that's all he needed. So he left Minma's room. Minato was happy. Well, he usually was, but especially today. Kakashi was joining them for dinner, and not just a quick visit to see the newborns, but to actually sit down and eat. You're home early, Daddy. Now came the second most dangerous redhead in the household. More energy than either parent and just as stubborn as Kushina. Playing along, he puffed out his chest in playfulness, looked to the sky, and pointed towards himself. Yes, the legendary yellow flash of Konoha, finished my duties in a flash. For I am the fastest man alive. A small giggle was all he got for his showmanship. Jiraiya was always better at it. The laugh from his wife was surprising though, quickly dropping the ridiculous stance he had taken. Embarrassed, he scratched the back of his head. Yashima-chan and I were just playing a game, aha. A smirk was the answer he got back, and he knew that Kushina could embarrass him with that for days to come now. Well, when you two are done playing, dinner is ready, and we won't be eating if the table isn't set. Young lady. There was a cry of not the food, and the little red ball of energy sprinted away to go set the table. They both watched from the hallway smiling and were about to talk to each other when Minma opened his door, waved and left for the dining room. Looking at each other, the married couple smiled, until Kushina frowned and put her hands on her hips. What did I tell you about using Harassment in the house? By this point, her index finger was pressing his chest with every point she made. What if I thought you were an intruder again? I could have hurt you with my chakra chains. You're lucky I know what you flashing here sounds like. Hands up in mock surrender. He did the only thing he thought would work in this situation, hugging his wife again. But there was no work, so I wanted to come home early and see my family again. Well, don't think that just cause you hugged me I'll let you get away with it. Just flash to the front door next time and knock, or I'll know some sense into you. A small, yes dear, and they were both on their way to the dinner table. Once they were all seated, Minato piped up. I have great news. Kakashi will be joining us for dinner today. A pair of yays and a I missed that little gray squirt was what he received, followed by a doorbell ringing. Well, isn't that a coincidence? Dear, could you serve everyone while I go drag the squirt in? Of course. Now who wants curry? Walking to the door, she could see the silhouette of a tall man with some hair pointing up. Opening the door, she was greeted by the sight of Kakashi Hitaki in casual wear, no ANBU mask, and no jonin vest. Hello Uzumaki-sama. The name Kushina to you. You know, now come here and give me a hug. It's been a while. I'm sorry it's been a while, Kushina-san. Hasn't it? Giving his sensei's wife and one of his parental figures a hug, he relaxed a bit. You were always welcome back here, you know? Next time, I'll drag you here if you only visit for a short time. Releasing the hug on each other, she showed him the way to the dinner table. Everyone already started on their own meals and 2 empty plates waiting to be filled. I'm sorry I'm late. Guy wanted to race when I said hi to him. Surprisingly, it was Yashima who spoke up. Mom always says never to be sorry for being with your friends. That's right, you tell him, Yasi-chan. It's not like we wouldn't let you eat if you were late. Well, I'd hate to miss your cooking any more than I have, so might as well dig in. Field rations always tasted the same. En route, the only good food came from the chef, a tough man who would wallop you if you pissed him off. Inari and Sai knew that ration bars only tasted bland as it was food that had the most nutritional value for their size, no room for anything extra. Cost-effective and filling, for a shinobi that's all they should need for food. Sai had to put up with Inari's eating patterns as being a Jinchuriki came with many ups and downs. One of the downs was that your body burned through calories as fast as kanai on sale. Like a steam engine, it needs fuel to keep going. This was all common knowledge en route, though. So when Sai had told Inari that they had a mission and they were taking someone, he just stood up and started packing rations. When Sai explained they could take another member with them, Inari declined, saying that Root should be able to do this. While he was hesitant to agree, Sai recalled how Akiko, the samurai, had overheard them talking about Root and had to be put down. Since they were both in agreement and had no other reason to hold back the mission, they both left, with Orochimaru waving outside the exit like a doting parent. Not that either of them knew what that was like. This was a mission they could do hand signs only. No one was there that couldn't understand. And so they started weaving signs. Mission parameters? 2. 1. No killing. We can't leave a wake of bodies like last time. 2. Target Almachi must be extracted alive. Understood. Now lead the way. With that, the two kids set off to Omi no Kuni, Land of Sea, both hoping this mission goes off without a hitch, unlike last time. Jiraiya was panicking. He had received some rather shocking news. Panicking led to hasty decisions. First trying the Hokage Tower only to discover that Minato wasn't there. He thought to check with Kushina. He barged into the Uzumaki and lone Namikaze residence, but what he didn't know was that they were in the middle of an early dinner, something that they were all enjoying. Sensei, a bit of a sweat drop, was present as it looked like he interrupted a nice meal by coming in from the rear door. What greeted him was the Hokage, his family, and Kakashi. No mask, just eating dinner like a normal person. Minato and Kakashi? What are you two doing here? I had nothing left to do, so I came home, and Kakashi is here because he had nothing to do either, and I told him to. Okay, what was I gonna say? Oh right. Can you step outside for a second, Minato? I have something important to tell you. You two better not take too long, or your dinner will get cold, Minato. Her answer was footsteps leaving the dining room. I'm not joking, Minato. The Land of Silence was not just attacked, but they also killed their daimyo. Granted, the man took that position by force from the old one, but still, this is troubling. I thought everyone was in a bout of peace for now. With revolutions like this popping up, it might cause some action. A look of deep thinking crossed the Hokage's face. He had hoped everyone would realize that this peace was better. It wasn't a revolution or anything like that. If it was, we'd know what happened already. My inside man told me that their leader, Django, was missing, and that no one took the glory for blowing up the mansion. As you know, most revolutions show off their victories. As Jiraiya explained, Minato wondered more and more who would gain from this. Thanks, Sensei, for coming to me right away. I have to go talk to Shikaku about this one. Could you please explain to Kushina why I'm taking off? Thanks, bye. No time to retort as a star student had already teleported. Damn blondes. The only question left now would be how to tell Kushina that Minato left. A low profile, that's what they needed to keep for the extraction mission. In and out, unlike last time. So they started with some light reconnaissance. After all, there were no borders in the Land of Sea, it being mostly a trading port with a small ninja population. That being said, the small population kept the trade safe and flowing. The shinobi are always keeping an eye out for thieves and gangsters, not for two young children at a ramen stand thinking about the layout of the village/trade dock. Holy shit, kid. You can eat a lot of ramen. Where's it all go? Looking over, they both saw that Inari had gathered quite a few bowls, numbering somewhere in the 20s. This might attract some attention. I ate all of that? It was so good, and Inari thought that he had asked for only a few extras. You sure did. Say, kid, are you going to be able to pay for all that? I'd hate to put you to work to pay off the bill, but if I have to. Sai chose this moment to step in and save the day. Not that they were in any danger. That will not be necessary. I have the required funds for payment. Well, kids got some allowance, eh? That ramen isn't the cheapest thing I make, you know. Honestly, the stand owner would be a rather likable guy if he didn't seem to be trying to con two kids out of an extra Rio. A loud thud, and the Rio was on the table. How much was needed? Neither one of them knew. The owner did, though, but he wanted to see how much more he could get. Wow, color me impressed. You two's the sons of some merchant? Oh, never mind, I just need half of that, and your bill's covered. Business all settled, they moved. Inari usually attracts attention either through people he briefly interacts with or by appearance. White hair does stand out a little. The plan they had laid out while eating would be a quick and efficient one, in and out and no bodies. The plan was a simple but efficient one. They would infiltrate at dawn, night watch would be leaving, and the morning crew would likely be drowsy from waking up. Sai thought he had the crew schedules figured out. Inari assured him he would keep his eyes peeled while Sai grabbed the prisoner, reasoning the more people they had going in, the higher chance of getting caught. Besides, they had a boat ready for the three of them hidden under some brush by the river. All in all, should be a quiet plan. The plan had gone off simply, in and out, no bodies, and they didn't get spotted. Sai had knocked out Amachi rather than risk the scientist making any noise, of course, after checking to see if anyone else was in the cell. Then came the escape after checking to see no one had spotted them. Inari had spotted Sai leaving with the target and followed behind, making sure to cover their tracks. The most surprising part was unsealing the unconscious scientist while in the middle of the body of water. Waking up fresh from being knocked out is one thing. Doing so after being in a transportation seal is another. Amachi had quickly tried to flail out with a chakra scalpel upon not recognizing his captors. Inari, the ever more violent one of the two, struck out first, slapping away the hand that held the scalpel with his own right hand. Inari then cocked his right elbow into the scientist's temple, making him fall on his behind, causing the boat rock dangerously. Sai, not wanting anything more to happen to their mark, pointed a tanto towards Amachi's chest, signaling to Inari it was over and to the downed man not to fight back. "Who are you two? I'll have you know I have some powerful friends, and they'll help me. We know, and that's why we are here. Orochimaru-sama sent us." Upon hearing his master's name, the recent escapee crawled as far away as he could, without falling off of the boat, of course. Why did he send you? He sent you to help me, right? Right? Our mission is to bring you back to Orochimaru-sama. Oh. Well, why'd he hit me then? Inari just looked at the reclined scientist, made a blade of bone burst out of his wrist, and pointed it at him. "I could cut off your arm next time. I assumed Orochimaru-sama wanted you intact. Well, I'm glad you realized what a blunder you could have made." Orochimaru wowed dash. He would have kept talking, but the snapping of Inari's head towards a direction stopped him. "We need to move. I think they know you are not in the prison anymore." Preposterous. It's just a small shinobi village. In fact, it is more of a trading port than a village. Sai just agreed with Inari. Not that Amachi could understand the hand signs passing between them, clearly forming a plan at the same time. No words spoken. The root shinobi jumped from the boat and ran across the water to the shore. Inari made 3 Kagebunshin shadow clones run back into the boat and hints to match the previous occupants. "Oh, I see you thought of the same idea I did. Maybe you two aren't hopeless after all." That was the last thing out of his mouth before receiving a thud to the back of the head. Not that the good doctor was 7LD, no, but he was just knocked out so they could seal him again before he gave away their position. Now was the easy part, escaping back to Otogakure with the target. The moment the duo arrived, they were greeted with the same shtick of a guard outside, and inside was the same. A labyrinth of twists and turns, all guided by different colored lines and lit by dim lighting. Still the ever-depressing basement of a narcissistic scientific snake sanine. Not that anyone within the radius of the base would ever dare call Orochimaru-sama that. Passing the scroll to Sai, Inari left to check on Kimimaro-san, possibly seeing if he was in any condition to teach or show any new techniques. "Asaikoin, my favorite root member. I trust your mission went well." The gravel-like voice notified the young child of his temporary master's presence. Kneeling in response to this knowledge, Sai raised the scroll containing Amachi. It was roughly the size of a large map in its rolled-up state. "We had to seal him away, Orochimaru-sama, lest he give away our position while we fled Ume no Kuni. Such things are necessary sometimes. I trust he's still alive and well in there, though." Sai just looked away at this, not wanting to essentially tattle on his brother. Sai? Did something happen to him? Being directly asked about it left the root member with no choice but to talk about it. May Inari forgive him. "Yes. When we had unsealed Dr. Amachi from the scroll that I used to escort him out of the prison, he had lashed out at us, and Inari had to intervene." "Intervene how exactly?" "Amachi's work has been enlightening, but he can be replaced if I must." "Well, Orochimaru-sama, Dr. Amachi had lashed out with a chakra scalpel and Inari stopped the attack, counterattacked with an elbow to the head, knocking Dr. Amachi to the floor." "Oh well, if that's it, it's of no issue. Inari-kun cannot fight his nature as a Kagaya descendant. Fighting comes first, and words come second. Although Kimimaro does the opposite. Oh well. But you needn't worry. If an elbow is all it took to ruin Amachi, then he wasn't fit to serve me." Unsealing said scientist, a poof of smoke appeared and a moving body was on the floor. "Amachi, you have 5 seconds to start explaining yourself. or I'm going to chop you up into little bits and feed you to a snake. Konoha's yellow flash would have been hard-pressed to beat the speed at which the threatened man stood up and started explaining. Well, I was scouting about the land of sea when some shinobi came and asked me what I was doing. Apparently, I looked suspicious. I tried to ditch them by swimming with my prototype Kaima form, but it quickly faded away. By this point, Orochimaru looked like he was done with this whole situation. I tell you, those shinobi harassed too many people. Why can't I just walk around? Is it because of my great mind? Maybe I show dash. Just stop, all right? So from what I hear, your Kaima form has come along from when I last saw it. Did you figure out the gill's location, or was it the layers of tenoid scales being formed too slowly? After many sacrifices on the part of the land of sea, I figured out it was the scales being formed too slowly. I suppose if I tried it first, I could have figured that out, but I didn't have to feel the pain of skin being transformed at the wrong speed. So that is why the land of sea had so many shinobi stationed. The doctor's kidnappings had finally caught wind. As much as I'd love to talk more about science projects, I do owe Saikuin here a favor, so if you'd leave for now, I'd appreciate it. Oh, and if you're looking for Kabuto-kun, he should be in Medical Center C. Amachi just saddled away, slowly and awkwardly to the door. Finally moving back to his desk, Orochimaru leaned back into his chair. So where do you want to begin? You can ask me anything. Danzo and I both worked en route together. For a small bit, that is. Danzo-sama told us before he left that we would be taking our final test when we got back. But everyone who has taken it is sworn to not tell anyone who hasn't taken it. I just want to know how I can prepare for it. My. Are you two already taking that test? Most take it at a bit of an older age. Must be wanting to ensure loyalty a bit earlier. To be rather blunt, you have to kill your partner to pass the test. The look of confusion for a brief second was delicious to Orochimaru. He grinned inwardly at what he was planning. A loyal pawn, inside one of the hardest to breach locations. Who do they partner you with? It wouldn't be someone from Root, would it? Well, when I said partner, who did you think of first? Inari. Yes, Kimimaro-san? Quit spacing out. Did you want to learn, or just waste my time? Look at how my bone molds just under my skin, not too deep as to interfere with muscles, and not too high as to break skin. This is important to keep the armor hidden. Start practicing this with your wrists. Walking away from the middle of the training ground, Kimimaro hobbled over to a bench and all but threw himself down. Practicing as he was instructed, Inari molded the bone into plates. The plates of bone had to be at the right height and right thickness, lest the hidden armor not be hidden or they become too thin to be used. I think I got it, Kimimaro-san. Sauntering over, Kimimaro looked at Inari's arm and knocked on it to feel the bone underneath. Quickly making a bone sword, Kimimaro chopped at Inari's wrist. In the end, all that resulted from the sword slashing at Inari was a bleeding forearm, a sign of a successful hidden bone armor. This is a skill all Shikatsu wielders learned, be it from scroll or personal tutoring. From my family scrolls to me, and from me to you, I passed this skill. You are now not a completely worthless shinobi. I shall serve Danzo-sama with these new abilities. Would you like to spar? I think I can handle one short spar to see if I was correct about you not being worthless. The opening of doors interrupted the two bone benders, and a pair of footsteps were introduced. Looking at the pair that just entered, you could see it was a duo of scientists, Kabuto and Amachi. No, Kimimaro-kun, you cannot handle another spar right now. Amachi and I are going to try some treatments on you. While I may be the better medical expert, Amachi-san is the better scientist in the field of unknown and changing physiology. So you will be coming with us. Oh, hello, Inari-kun, have you met Amachi-san? Mentioned scientist and doctor paled slightly when brought under the gaze of the demon-containing bone-wielding root child. Yes, Orochimaru-sama sent us to retrieve him. Well, I'm sorry for taking away your sparring partner, but Amachi-san here might be able to do more to fix Kimimaro-kun than I can. A trio of footsteps left the room and Inari was left all alone again. No sparring partner to practice with and no Danzo-sama to command him. I wonder when Danzo-sama is going to pick us up? I feel like we should stop with the questions for now, Saikuin. It is getting rather late. Orochimaru shouldn't feel the utter glee from turning a shinobi a child's world upside down, but he did. It was the expression of utter betrayal, knowing what awaited them if they had followed their current path. That cannot be true. Saikuin, I'm a great deal of many things, but a liar isn't one of them. A lie. You can ask me any question, and I'll tell you the truth every time. Well, only my side of the story. You will not lie to me, Orochimaru-sama? How can I trust you? He isn't completely naive enough to trust promises alone anymore. In the few split seconds between saying that and waiting, I seem to have gained some confidence. Actually, how do I know you are not making any of this up? Because I have proof, documents, procedures. testing, and multiple witness accounts from scientific testing. Would you like to see them? Denial was no longer a possibility. Sai had to accept the facts as they were. Danzo-sama, no Danzo, was raising children in pairs only to have them kill each other off. And when they were broken and empty from what they had to do, he gave them a new goal. Not to say that before learning all of the truth that Sai had been unloyal. It's just that given the choice between Inari, who he had been raised most of his life with, or Root and Danzo, an organization raising them to be trained killers, it was an easy choice to pick his brother. I did not know what to do anymore. How do I tell Inari? He was always more loyal to Danzo than I was. He murdered 5 civilians because they insulted Danzo just by calling him names. If Orochimaru was shocked by this revelation, he did an amazing job of hiding it. But the snake Sannin had guessed that Inari had a history of violence. Why? Why are you telling me this? Because it's time for me to break ties with Danzo. I'm no longer profiting and someone else wants me on their team. I was going to wait a couple more years before cutting ties, but I received word on the same day you came back from the Land of Silence that I was to join them earlier than they thought. So you would not have helped Danzo then if you knew that you were to cut ties then. You're correct, except I still would have agreed with the surgery and slit his throat while he was strapped down. Why would you tell me all of this and not someone else en route? Or even tell someone else? A smirk befell the manipulator's face. Because the way I see it, we can both profit from this. You do something for me inside of Root where I can't get to, and you can stay with me. I'll never lie to you, and when you convince Inari of the truth, I'll bring him into the family as well. Family? They don't lie to each other, do they? I will do it, no matter the task, Orochimaru-sama. I know you will, but let's make a little backup plan, just in case things go wrong. Danzo Shimura was a great deal of many things: patriotic, a leader, smart, owner of a shadow organization that only he knew about, and most of all, wise. You don't get to be at the age Danzo is unless you're smart, and as you grow, smarts turn into wisdom. He had seen all 3 shinobi wars, so he knew all sides of mankind. The ever-hopeful almost never breaking under the pressure, the wrathful ones who will stop at nothing to accomplish their goals. Which is why Danzo was having second thoughts about leaving Sai and Inari with Orochimaru. They had done a great deal of mini operations together, but Danzo knew what Orochimaru really was at heart: a snake, which is why he was considering taking Inari back. Sai was also a good member of Root. It was about time to reclaim them anyways. Are you sure this plan will work, Orochimaru-sama? There are several holes in it I can think of. Damned Root shinobi can't adapt a plan unless they're in the middle of it. I'm sure you can make the solutions as you go, Sai-kun, grabbing him by the shoulders and kneeling as he spoke. I have confidence you can do this, because it's for you and Inari. It was like a 40% chance he would get away with the plan that they had laid out. That number jumped to 100 with the recent modifications. I will have confidence in the plan because you do, Orochimaru-sama. A happy smirk grew across Orochimaru's face at the newfound loyalty of Sai. If only he knew he was just a pawn in the game of adults. Then there isn't anything to worry about. I know you'll complete the task I gave you. Now what do you say you go find Inari, and we can all have dinner together? A nod was the answer received, and he was off to find his non-blood-bound brother. Are you sure this is crucial training? I do not feel like I am learning anything important. Inari was training at the moment. Improvement is an endless road that many people can help you with. Instead, Tayuya had seen him and called out to him, interrupting whatever talk she was having with her team, leading to the current training, if you could call it that. I can assure you fuck is necessary for thinking outside the box and surprising your opponents. This fuck you talk about, is it that useful? I use it whenever I can. It's the most fucking useful thing I ever learned. How do I use fuck? Well, you can use it anyway, really. Fuck's fucking versatile. So I was watching this on the side confused. Was fuck that useful? Regardless, he called out to his comrades. Inari, Tayuya, Orochimaru-sama told me to fetch you for dinner. We are all eating together tonight. Oh shit, race you fuckers there. And Tayuya was gone. Some friendly competition is always nice, so they tried to beat her there. First. You know what they always say, ladies first. Then why did you get here first? Sakan, ever the gentleman, spoke up. All I see is a sassy child speaking, unless Guren-san is behind you. Ah, the fights were starting earlier this time. Well, they would have, if not for the glare that promised untold amounts of harm if the bickering continued, from Orochimaru. Forgive us, Orochimaru-sama. Just this once, and only since we don't eat like this often. I must treat my subordinates with respect after all. Right, Kabuto-kun? As you say, Orochimaru-sama. Come now, we're having food with or without you. If they took one thing from that, it's that there was food, and they all loved food. Orochimaru could hear whispers outside their private dinner room. Most of the time, he would pass it off as pawns being pawns. In a rocky time of switching allegiances, he couldn't take any risks, so he excused himself from the table. Standing just outside the door to the hallway, he vomited up Kusanagi, the legendary grass-cutting blade. Opening the door, Orochimaru slowly walked out, blade in hand ready for anything, only for it to be two children. One of them was a boy wrapped up in bandages leaving only one eye exposed, and the other was a small girl with long black hair done with a purple bow. The black-haired girl was the first to speak up, if you could call the pathetic whimpering that she did speaking. "Oh, Orochimaru-sama, we were wondering if Kabuto-san was in there. Why the hell was Kabuto involved with these two brats? Give me a moment, and I'll fetch him for you too. Thank you so much, Orochimaru-sama." With that gratitude, he walked away, only after flashing a charming smile to settle them down. Kabuto. Yes, Orochimaru-sama. Experience as a Sannin was what prevented him from jumping back, away from his teleporting assistant. There are two children outside right now asking for you. Care to explain why? A millisecond of surprise showed, not enough to enjoy the new expression on his underling's face. Enough to know that Kabuto had messed up in some way, though. I may have taken their friend for experimentation and forgot to wake him up from his induced coma. Oh, well, if that's it, it's not a big deal then. Couple weeks ago. Now an awkward silence floated in the air. Is he still alive? He should be. I'm pretty sure I gave him enough fluids to last a week. There wasn't a chance for Orochimaru to point out that while that would be plentiful for most surgical operations, it was supposedly enough for a week, which Kabuto was over the quota for by double, as his most useful underling was already off to go fix his mistake. I'm sure this will resolve itself. Where's my manners? I'm sorry for excusing myself from the table without warning. Essentially, everyone immediately kneeled and said different things, all meaning the same thing essentially, though. It's not your fault, Orochimaru-sama. You need not excuse yourself, Orochimaru-sama. Next time I ask that you send me to deal with the issue, so you may stay seated, Orochimaru-sama. They all sounded the same, unending worship and praise for himself. As it should be. Thank you for cleaning up as always, Kadamaru-kun. Your praise boosts me as always, Orochimaru-sama. Honestly, if he wasn't a shinobi, he would make an amazing housekeeper, being that he has 6 arms in all. Everyone else, you can go to your rooms. Except you, Kimimaro. I need to speak with you. A nod was given to his master, and Kimimaro followed Orochimaru to wherever they were heading. That left both Sai and Inari with nothing left to do. Hey Inari, let us spar. Orochimaru-sama taught me some new things. Finally, something exciting. Rumbling was what disturbed Kimimaro's meditation, immediately making him think that they were under attack. Dashing out of his bedroom, he looked around and saw no signs of intruders or danger, only people slowly peeking out of their rooms. Upon looking down the hallway a little longer, he saw a silhouette walking down the hall. The larger size of this outline pointed towards Jirobo. Jirobo, who was making that much noise at this hour? Haha. No one told our 2 guests that explosive tags aren't allowed indoors. I went to go stop them, but Orochimaru-sama was already there, just watching. If Orochimaru-sama was there and not stopping the fight, I see no reason to worry then. Orochimaru-sama has been paying close attention to them. Most children would boast, shout and scream when practicing against their friends. Sai and Inari were silent. The only noises were the explosives and the thud of bone into concrete, all covering up the background splashes of boots stepping in ink. Every time Sai would make several ink mice. Every single one of them had a different seal that would hinder Inari. Some were explosive seals, others paralysis seals, and other heinous acts of fuinjutsu. Inari was on the defensive for the most part, throwing as many miniature spikes from his fingertips in an attempt to curb the swathes of mice crawling towards him. Sai had the advantage for the most part by getting the first major blow in the fight, landing a paralysis seal on Inari the moment the fight started. Inari had shaped a plate of bone to cut around the seal and expel the chunk of flesh off. By the time the seal was removed and he could move his muscles again, it was already too late, as another mouse had landed on his right leg. That particular mouse was an explosive seal, and while Inari, not knowing what type of meddling seal it was, grew a quick plate of bone around his leg to protect himself, it was for naught, and the explosion created shrapnel out of the thin armor, shredding the muscles in his right leg. At least for a little, while Inari would be hopping around on one leg. After that, though, Inari had focused on wiping out the swathes of mice, resulting in essentially a pool of ink on the ground. Sai was steadily gaining advantage, until a cylindrical bone chunk landed in front of him. Keeping an eye on it, he still worked steadily at making different types of seals in his ink mice. Then the cylinder exploded. It wasn't a smoke bomb nor a large explosion. It was a small explosion to break up the shape and send innumerable amounts of bone splinters. The human shrapnel both shredded Sai's mouse tactics and made the fuinjutsu user look away, lest his eyes become a lot less useful. Inari was already bounding towards Sai, root tanto in hand and bloodlust evident. Suddenly, the puddles of ink started sloshing, making rough outlines of all sorts of creatures, from 2 all the way up to 8 legs. Sai's voice spoke out for the first time in this spar, announcing whatever this new technique was. Inkujuga no Jutsu. Ink Beast Army. In response, Inari stopped to grow bone armor on his arms, legs, and chest, all hidden under his skin. He was making it preemptively to avoid developing it too thin in an emergency situation. Sai just waited, barely holding onto the last of his chakra. Creating this many large creatures out of this much ink was hard on the reserves. The cue for the onslaught of ink versus man was Orochimaru, still standing in the corner, watching, who gave a slight nod. All the inky monstrous masses launched at Inari, all sorts of beasts. Claws and fangs all bearing down on him, bruising and cutting him, but never going past his hidden armor. Next came the counterattack from Inari, tanto in his left hand and bone spear growing out of his wrist and nestling into his right hand. The massacre started with the creature's inky hides giving little to no resistance against steel and bone. All were cut down the same, which is why Inari was surprised when they were all gone, leaving him standing in the middle of the room. Bruises forming and fading, cuts slowly mending. Now that the adrenaline rush had slowed and the want for blood had faded, Inari looked closer at the ground. The ink splatter wasn't a natural way it would have landed. It seemed organized. Looking up to his pale partner, he saw him barely standing, holding up the serpent seal. Inari knew the armor he had hidden underneath would protect from basic taijutsu and weak blade attacks. He didn't have confidence that it would protect him from several explosive seals that landed from the ink beasts. Quickly thinking, he made additional armor to go over his skin and over his root uniform, all the while going through the motion of throwing his tanto at Sai. Sai wasn't going to let Inari finish all of that though, and switched from the serpent hand seal to ram. The explosion rocked the arena, sending a flood of ink and debris everywhere. The tanto that Inari had been in the motion of throwing had left his hand, but the explosion sent it flying away and embedding in the roof. Sai was knocked away by the shockwave and pushed back down by the torrent of black ink, keeping him down long enough for the dust to settle. Orochimaru was still in the corner watching, having put up an earth barrier to keep shrapnel and stains away. Finally standing back up, Sai looked about for Inari and spotted him, in a jumbled mess of bone, ink, and blood. Shuffling over, still chakra drained, Sai got a good look at his brother. Inari, are you okay? Getting closer, you could really see the damage. Bits of small bone embedded in his skin with larger pieces stuck in here and there. Burns from both the heat of the explosions and the explosively heated ink splashing him. He had managed to make armor around his head at the very least, and it had held up in the explosion. The rest of his body had half plates over the surface with jagged edges from breaking. Orochimaru-sama, please come help. I'm sorry, Inari, I did not mean to use that powerful of an explosive. You need not worry, Saikuin. The QB won't let something like this kill him. You should be proud of yourself, though. Even if he's still inexperienced, taking down a Shikatsumiyaku user is no small feat. Proud? I do this to the one person I want to save from root, and I should be proud? That's not what I meant, Saikuin. I mean, just look at the progress of your Fuinjutsu. Could you have done this before you came here? He was right. The amount of crippling, harming, and otherwise annoying seals he had learned were the reason why he got the first blow in the fight. That being said, he didn't like what he did to Inari. You are correct as always, Orochimaru-sama. I should have held back on the explosive though. If you hold back too much, he might notice a change though, and we can't let anyone know of our little secret Saikuin. Not until we're both ready. A groan interrupted any other shadowy plotting, for Inari's body was slowly stitching itself back together and waking him up. It is your win, Sai. That announcement was followed by the breaking down of the bone armor, inside and out. Slowly, he sat himself back up and leaned against the wall and started taking out the larger bone pieces. The smaller ones were naturally being pushed out by the rapid healing factor, along with the burns seemingly melting away into smooth skin again. After all was said and done, Inari looked 10 times better. Only thing was that he was covered in dried blood and ink. The root uniform was torn, charred, and soaked in ink. Sai, on the other hand, was just drenched in ink from head to toe. Both of them needed new uniforms and a good shower. That was a good show, Inari-kun, but I must leave and let everyone else know we're not under attack. The arena was in pretty bad shape. A large crater was in the middle of it and had pooled all of the ink away from the drains. There were scorch marks and stains everywhere, along with random pieces of bone stuck all about from Inari killing ink mice. And the tanto was still embedded in the roof. That was a good spar, Sai. Let us do it again soon. But I nearly killed you, did I not? Orochimaru-sama says it would take a lot more, but I think I almost did. If you kill me, I was too weak to serve root then. I'm going to go get some more food now. I am starving. That's how little root neens are raised to value their lives. If they die, they were too weak to serve root. Sai almost forgot he was raised like that too, but he was going to help Inari realize the truth about root. Orochimaru-sama would help after all, not wanting to be left behind. Sai also left for food. I think they had soup tonight. Orochimaru-sama, is it really wise to leave that task in his Sai's hands? I feel as if his sense of comfort with Inari will hold him back. Looking up from his papers, Orochimaru only smirked. I think it will be fine, Kabuto-kun. All he has to do is get information on all of DANZO'S contacts and bring it to me. I also plan on giving him a helping hand just in case he needs it. That network of people Danzo had under his thumb made Jiraiya look like he was running around blind. Danzo was smart and paranoid though. No amount of infiltration led him to the knowledge of the people he had. The ones he had helped Danzo put in were already dead or Kabuto, and they had long ago reached an agreement on Kabuto's stay. Well, I was just wondering what you were thinking. Now that you've been told to cut ties with Danzo, I think that things will work out perfectly. Pain gets me in his entourage, and I get a prodigy Fuinjutsu user and a Jinchuriki. As you say, Orochimaru-sama.